Going live. I'm live. Happy Saturday. I'm alone again. Not alone in the dark, but alone. That was a horribly dated reference to a video game. Probably few people remember. My phone just went off and I don't know where it is. Oh, here you go. Oh, yes. A mail from YouTube telling me that I'm live. Yes, I'm live. I have some stuff that's been sitting in my queue, my inbox, things that were sent to me by folks or who I reached out to folks because I was interested in looking at their material. And so they sent it to me. So I thought I would hit a couple of them. The first one I'm going to do is Tap, Untap, Burn by Phil Kearney. That one's a DM's Guild for 5th edition. I'll just hit the button so you can see. I will do this one first. Then we'll see what this takes for me. And then I have another set. Let's see. What is it called? Creature. Oops. Boy, you'd think I would be more organized. Here we go. Creature Feature Quarterly. I have Volume 1, Volume 2, and then a sample from Volume 3, which is currently on Indiegogo. I think it's in the last couple days. We'll see how I do with time on those, and I have more. If I don't get to them today, I will try to get to them tomorrow. So let's not waste any more time listening to my blither blathering. Let's get into Tap, Untap, Burn. It's a set of variant rules for 5-color mana spell points. For 5th edition, it's on DM's Guild. I will get links and put these later into the descriptions and whatnot. So if you like it, you'll know where to get it. This one's by Phil Kearney. Let's head in there. Using Tap, Untap, Burn. This book is a collection of modular variant rules that change magic and spellcasting in Dungeons & Dragons to a 5-color magic paradigm that is inspired by Magic the Gathering. So just offhand while I'm reading this, I know next to nothing about Magic the Gathering. Hopefully, I will not be punished for my lack of knowledge. Each group of variant rules is presented as a separate chapter that can be added or omitted from your campaign. Those that purchase this work through the DM's Guild will also receive an editable list of all spells from the player's handbook pre-sorted by color for each casting class that you can use to customize each spell list for your own unique campaign. Very cool. A printer-friendly mana playmat to tap, untap, and burn mana during game. And I'm guessing the tap, untap, I think I recognize that, right? Magic, you have a card, you play it, you tap it, right? And then you untap it. Is burn when you toss it away? I'm not sure, but hopefully it will be explained. But someone who's played Magic, I apologize in advance for, like I said, my lack of knowledge, but I will muddle through. And some color mana tokens for optional use with the mana playmat. So that's cool. So you get some little extras there. I like that. I like those kind of extra tools. I mean, they're they add obviously add extra value to the product, right? But they're things that will help you use the product. I'm all for it. All right, Phil Kearney is the author. He's also the designer and illustrator. Edited by Heighton Dave, Justin Johnston, Ken Carcass. All right, let's get going. So first we have in the table of contents. So looking at the kind of things we have here, we have some spell point variant rules, then an explanation of the 5-color magic paradigm, then the 5-color mana mechanics, and then some character classes based on that, some 10th level spells, and an epic wish. Looks like maybe some simplified durations. I'm guessing I guess there's a description. Why don't I just read it? Variant rules for spell durations, variant concentration rules, allied unit variant rules, sources of magic, magic items, and then implementing. All right, so we get a lot here. I'm not sure if I will go through everything. It seems like these are modular, right? So I should be able to just pop one out and put it in and skip something else if I don't like it. But I think we'll definitely get into the first couple of chapters because that will really form the basis of everything that is to follow. And then maybe I'll pick and choose some stuff from there. All right. Spell point variant rules. Instead of gaining spell slots to cast your spells from the spellcasting feature, you gain a pool of spell points, referred to as mana. The amount of mana you spend, referred to as burn. Okay, so there's the burn in the title. Is based on the level of the spell being cast, and you can't reduce your mana pool to less than 0. You recover all burn mana when you finish a long rest. Okay. So I guess, right, because some spellcasting classes, right, they get some things back on short rest, but at least this is saying at the far, it's only after a long rest, which I'm not sure if that means that this is really only applicable for wizards or whether it'll have, options for the other spellcasting classes that aren't long rest based. We shall see. The amount of mana in the mana pool is based on your level as a spellcaster, as shown in the mana progression table. Okay, so we have the mana progression table on the side. Shows full casting, half casting, third casting. I'm not sure. All right. I mean, I know we could guess on some things with classes that, this is a half caster, but do they don't actually classify things in the books, right? In the materials as full, half, or third. I'm not sure what a third is. Would that be something where you're 3 classes and one of them is a magic user? I mean, that to me would be third. I'm not sure. Unknown. But you can see that obviously if you're a full caster, you're going to get a much expanded mana pool compared to half casting and third casting. And let's see, it looks like, 19th levels where you get access to those 10th level spells. I guess we'll read about later. Okay. All right, so that's the mana progression table. Your level also determines the maximum level spell you can cast. Even though you might have enough mana to cast a spell above this maximum, you can't do so. Excuse me in advance. I've been battling a cough all week, so expect more of those, unfortunately. You burn mana equal to the level of spell being cast. Cantrips and rituals don't require mana. Okay, so that's easy to know if you're casting a 6th level spell. It requires 6 mana, right? That's fairly easy. Spells of 1st to 5th level, referred to as common magic, can be cast repeatedly while enough mana remains available to burn. Spells of 6th level and higher, referred to as high magic, are particularly powerful. The number of high magic spells you can cast before finishing a long rest is equal to your max spell level minus 5. Okay, so let's just go back to this table just so I can see if I'm getting this correctly. If I'm 19th level, my max level is 10, which means the number of high magic spells I can cast is 5. I think that's fairly reasonable. I mean, 5 is a good amount for a day, but you can't necessarily just spam, even if you cast nothing else. Right, because 5, and they cost, I guess it would be variable, right? So 5 9th level spells would cost 45 points, and even though that would still leave you some change, you can't use it. Let's see. Okay, for example, all right, so here's some examples. For example, 13th level cleric has a max spell level of 7. All right, so 13th level. So they're considering clerics as full casters. You can cast max spell level 7 minus 5 equals 2 high magic spells before finishing a long rest. These spells can be 2 6th level spells, burning a total of 12 mana, 2 7th level spells, burning a total of 14 mana, or 1 6th and 1 7th level spell, burning a total of 13 mana. Right. I guess I don't think I have any questions per se. I guess I'm just thinking in terms of how this plays out at the table. And I guess I wonder if we need some kind of counter or something. Maybe you have a die in front of you that can clip over, because it is one more thing you have to track, right? Because one is the amount of spell points you have. Maybe use a piece of scratch paper, a dry, wet or dry erase on some kind of reusable piece of paper. But this is yet something else. So I suppose you could use that same whatever you're marking your spell points on, but it is definitely a second thing to track. Mana progression by level varies depending on a character's class or subclass as depicted in the mana progression table. Here are some key terms. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to find out what these things mean. Full casting classes include Bard, Cleric, Druid, Sorcerer, and Wizard. Half casting classes include Paladin and Ranger. Third casting classes include Fighter, Eldritch Knight, and Rogue, Arcane Trickster subclasses. Okay. Interesting. So if you take the Fighter subclass, I might have thought a Fighter Eldritch Knight was a half caster, but I don't know. I'm sure I assume some work or some thought was put into how these potentially balance against each other and balance against or come close or approximate kind of how many spells you get from the books, right? Slots. So I will just, for the moment anyway, I'll just assume that these work out to more or less the same, plus minus a little bit, room to wiggle. Max level, the maximum spell level you can cast. Mana pool, the total amount of mana you have available to burn. Warlocks don't use the mana progression table and are described separately in chapter 4 below. Okay. So we have a little call-out text here. The spell point progression replaces the variant rules from the Dungeon Master's Guide, chapters 2, 3, and 4 below detail how to convert magic and spell points to the color paradigm. If you wish to use universal spell points without color, those rules are available through DM's Guild here. Okay, so I think he might have sent me that one too. But we'll go with this. Ooh, I like that. Guy looks like Nosferatu the Wizard. A magic paradigm. Okay, so here we are. We're already in chapter 2, 5-color magic paradigm. Magic paradigm describes how magic and spells are divided into categories referred to as facets by assigning ideals, themes, and effects in the game to each facet, referred to as aspects. The magic paradigm in the player's handbook is the 8 schools of magic. In that paradigm, only one aspect is assigned to each facet. For example, all the spells in the School of Transmutation alter the target of the spell in some manner. All right, that's good. I like that. It gave us this I don't know if it's a new concept, but maybe new to us concept, and then kind of grounded it in what we theoretically already know from what we've learned in 5th edition already. The 5-color magic paradigm replaces the 8 schools of magic with a 5-facet magic system, described as the colors that define magic in Magic the Gathering. Okay, there's the link, the hook. So those colors are white, blue, black, red, and green. All spells are assigned to one color, referred to as devoted, based on the various aspects chosen to define each color of magic. So here we're going to see the colors and the things that define them. And I'm assuming that these match up with magic, I guess. Someone chime in at some point and let me know if these do not match up with your recollection of the colors. It's not said, or it's unknown, right, whether he's taking these from magic or these aspects from magic as well, or just the colors. But let's go through them and we'll see what we'll see. White, bind, disrupt, enhance, light, protect, radiance, suppress. And that has a, okay, W. Oh, okay. They're just some, I guess, abbreviations that will be used later. Blue, communication, dimensions, illusion, knowledge, reveal, time, voyages. Black, acid, coerce, cold, darkness, fear, necrotic, soul. Interesting that soul's black. I might have thought white, but again, I don't know if that's just from my imagery of souls being white or whether, whatever. I mean, someone could tell me if these are Phil's creations or this is just how it works in Magic. Red, alter, creation, fire, force, freedom, kinetics, lightning. And then green, creatures, earth, healing, nature, plants, water, and wind. Many game mechanics from Magic the Gathering aren't relevant to Dungeons & Dragons, so the aspects chosen for each color are inspired by the aesthetics of Magic, while also devoting classic and important spells from the player's handbook among all 5 colors. Okay. So these are inspired by. So there might be, so I guess he's saying, hey, look, I'm going to be taking some editorial liberties because some stuff from Magic just doesn't carry over. Fine and fine. Good to know. All right, we're going to get a 5-color spell chart. On the following pages is the full list of spells from the player's handbook, sorted by level and color. Okay, I'm not going to go through all these, but we'll just take a quick look. In the cantrips, we've got, let's see, Blade Ward, Light, Resistance, and Sacred Flame are under white. Dancing Lights, Guidance, Message, Minor Illusion, Prestidigitation, and Thaumaturgy, True Strike. Those are blue. Okay. Green, I mean, a lot of Druid and Rangery stuff, right? It's going to be in the green. Druidcraft, Shillelagh, Spare the Dying, Thorn Whip. I don't know if there's anything. I mean, I don't, I feel like what he's got laid out here seems to make sense. I mean, I'm not going to go through and nitpick which spells are where. But, and of course, if you're using spells from other books or whatever, then obviously you'll have to slot those in wherever you think they are. But at least you've got a good, pretty complex, complete starting list of core spells. Okay, let's see. I want to check something. No, can't check. Can't check, won't check. All right. The 5-color magic paradigm has literal visual cues to identify magic devoted to a specific color that can be used in narrative description to provide technical game information through a structured, vivid aesthetic. Whew. All right, that's a complex sentence. We are going to have literal visual cues to identify magic devoted to a specific color. Okay, that part makes sense, right? Basically, I think he's saying, hey, you can, these colors are going to give cues that you can use to help both be a narrative, even just part of the fiction, but also it conveys game information. If you see someone's casting and there's some kind of white glow around it, then you know something about what kind of spell is being cast, which is actually kind of an interesting way to do it. It puts almost an interesting spin I could see on something like Counterspell, right? If you had to determine something about the color and then that informed your use of a counterspell, if there was kind of a way to do it where you couldn't tell the spell, but by knowing the color, maybe you could get close. I don't know. That's cool. Here we have an example. Magic tethers of entwined white and blue energies could be anchoring a demon inside a white binding circle. The red and black flames from the fiend flare with fury and hate. The red and black flames from the fiend flare with fury and hate as it struggles against its boss, right? So here we have some colors, but those colors actually are meaningful beyond just fanciful descriptions. It's not just fluff. It is also telling you something about what the magic that is binding this fiend, and also the magic that maybe the fiend is trying to use to escape. So that is cool. The color cues, they're about to tell us what I just said. The color cues identify for the players that the spell trapping the demon is white and blue magic, possibly a dimensional anchor that prevents the creature from teleporting away, while also physically confining it within the borders of the circle. Players could discern this information with an easy intelligence arcana check. The creature emanates red and black magic, likely fire, necrotic energy, mind control, which is all being suppressed by the tethers. So those are cool things. I kind of feel like if you were going to use this, I wouldn't want to have intelligence checks for that. It would be on me as a GM to give you that kind of color information, and then you as the players, if you're playing in this, to figure that part out. But I'm kind of an old school type, so anything, I would rather have the players puzzle over it than just have them roll check. But either way, it is cool. Visual effects enhance player engagement with the campaign narrative. Other examples include a faint aura of color surrounding a spellcaster maintaining concentration. That's another cool one. Lines of arcane formulae circling around affected targets. Balls of color orbiting a spellcaster while maintaining concentration. Lines of energy stretching between a spellcaster and an affected target. Kind of video gamey, but still cool. A creature's eyes flare the appropriate color when using an innate magic ability. That's an interesting use. When a character discovers an illusion, it appears slightly faded in a bluish aura, now obvious to see. That's also a good one. Also, detect magic. If you cast detect magic, you could have some interesting things with different levels of success. And if you just see the color, or if you get all the effects, or if there's multiple effects, one effect. So yeah, those are some cool uses of the colors. And I'm always someone who's thinking, what can I pull out of this? If I say I like this bit of it, but I don't feel like using all the rest of it, I could definitely pull this out, use those color tables just when I'm describing spells. I could definitely see having that chart in front of me and then using that with the white, the red, the blue, because it doesn't depend necessarily on using the entire grouping. You could just say, yeah, that's what magic looks like. Those things look like those colors. So ace in my book. Okay, this added visual component to Magic provides more descriptive information about the campaign world for the players to interact with. Some of these effects can be visible to anyone or only through means such as detect magic, or see invisibility. That's another good one. The DM judges how easily various magic effects can be detected. Here we get an example. A locked box in a treasure trove gleams white to the naked eye when tampered with. When observed through detect magic, an easy intelligence check will reveal an arcane lock spell is the cause of the radiant discharge, but a high enough result would reveal thin strings of blue magic concealing deeper enchantments. Ooh, okay, I definitely like that. Let's see. A medium intelligence investigation check confirms that there is some form of trap at the end of the blue strings, but the specifics are too well concealed by the deceptive blue magic. A high enough result would allow the characters to follow the blue strings to a knot of black magic that triggers if the arcane lock is broken. Further investigation can assure the knot is non-lethal, while a very high result will reveal a sleep spell that persists until the key holder resets the lock. Ooh, that's a cool, interesting trap with some cool, interesting little mechanics there for dealing with the magic. It definitely gives a more immersive feel to dealing with this magical trap, right? You're making several checks, potentially. You're trying to determine from the colors what kind of spells might be involved. Some cool ways to draw it out. I mean, obviously the flip side of it is potentially one player is doing this while everyone's kind of sitting around waiting. But I feel like it's a very engaging way to do it. I would definitely try to work that stuff in. And it's a concept you could just pull out of this and use even with just normal or the, by the book normal, whatever, quote unquote, vanilla magic system. To convert a campaign to the 5-color paradigm, describe magic in the campaign world through the 5 colors of magic instead of the 8 schools. Character classes impacted by the new paradigm, such as wizard, arcane traditions, and spell selections for fighter, eldritch knight, and rogue, arcane trickster, are detailed in chapter 4. All right. Moving right along. We're going to see the 5-color mana mechanics. The mana pool. Using this variant, each point... Okay, so maybe now we're going to be getting into different variants. So I'm not sure if the mana pool is itself one variant or whatever, but let's just start here. Using this variant, each point of mana in the pool is devoted to one of the 5 colors. Okay, so this is definitely a specific variant, I would guess. For example, a 3rd level cleric has 8 mana. You could choose to devote these 8 points to 3 white, 2 blue, 2 black, and 1 green mana, which is summarized as, 3W, 2U, 2B, 1G. Well, that gets pretty complicated. However, if you're using chits or you could use some other props, I would guess, to maybe make it a little bit more easily trackable. To cast a spell, there must be mana in the pool devoted to the color of the spell being cast. The amount of devoted mana in the pool required must equal or exceed the level of the spell. For example, the 3rd level cleric mentioned above has enough mana to cast 1st and 2nd level spells devoted to white, blue, and black. Even though the cleric can cast 2nd level spells, there's only enough green mana in the pool to cast 1st level green spells. Since no mana is devoted to red, this cleric can't cast any red spells except cantrips or rituals. I gotta say, this is pretty cool. I like it. However, I don't know if I could use it because all that extra tracking. Now, of course, we're living in the age of Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, things like that. So maybe you could make some kind of thing to track that more automatically. Yes, you could do it, right? Back in the day when we were tracking everything on paper, we did a fine job tracking everything, all kinds of gear and whatnot. So yes, it could be tracked. It feels like it's a little bit fiddly, but I really like the concept because I could see where you could take away a lot of the stuff of, hey, we're not going to worry about tracking spells themselves. Or as a cleric, right? You have access to all these different spells. We're going to control it just through your mana. So like they were saying, hey, you have no red mana. You can't cast red mana spell. It doesn't matter how many are on the spell list, cleric. You can't get to them because you can't cast them. So you could control what spells your cleric or whatever spellcaster can cast simply through controlling the colors of mana that they have. If you want them to have a lot of the kind of white mana type spells, then you just give them a lot of white mana each level. If you don't want them to have any of the red mana spells, then just don't give them any red mana. And then it really leaves it up to the player how to dish out the mana that they do have and use it. And you could even have, which I would think would be cool too, right, is then you could think of a mechanic where, okay, let's say I'm going to say that I would probably break it down, right? So I don't want to get too in the weeds in this, but it seems pretty cool, right? So let's say you have, okay, you're strong in, using their example of this cleric's mana pool is three white, 2 blue, 2 black, 1 green. You could have strong, moderate, and weak, which would be considering, okay, they're strong in white. They're moderately strong in blue and black, and they're weak in green, and I guess missing is red, or they're unknown is red, something like that, right? So you could set up your class like that. And then you could say, okay, you can take a strong and maybe trade it in 2 for 1. So you don't have any red, but you could take your 2 white and then turn that into 1 red mana. Maybe you say for your moderate ones, you could trade 3 for 1. So you could take your 2 blue and 2 black, trade in 3 of those for 1 red, right? So you could really have this thing where you could have those red spells, but you gotta spend a ton of mana. And you could use poker chips, I think would be good to do something like that, where you could sit there and play with and say, okay, I'm gonna put all these in the spent pile because I really need this red spell, and I will just pay the price. And I like that flexibility. I like that idea of kind of risk reward in the sense of, okay, I'm gonna spend a ton of stuff, which puts it at a risky proposition depending on what other encounters are there before I'm going to get my spells back, or my mana points back. And then the reward of, okay, now I've cast a spell that I might not automatically have access to, or I could usually only cast at a much lower level. So I like it. I would definitely think about even a way of looking at classes more in line with what kind of mana they get. But the caveat is it takes a lot more, kind of a different kind of tracking, right? And we'd have to figure that out, and it might not be good for everyone, but of course it's a variant. You don't have to bother with it if you don't want to. But there might be some good uses for that. Adding color to mana. Okay. Oh, I think is this part of the same one? Okay. Unfortunately, the headers are both the same size, so I wasn't sure whether they're 2 separate things or maybe they're together. All right. Well, let's just read on. Starting when you gain a mana pool as a spellcasting class feature, and anytime your mana pool increases by gaining another level in a spellcasting class, you choose which color you will devote each new point of mana in your pool. This choice is permanent. However, when a spellcaster gains a level, you may also change the devotion for as many points of mana in the pool equal to as many points gained that level. All right, I think, yeah, I definitely need an example for that, and I'm glad because here it is. A 4th level cleric has a pool of 12 mana. These could be devoted to, all right, I'm not going to read off all those. Upon gaining 5th level, the cleric adds 4 more mana to the pool, such as 3 black and 1 green. The pool then has 16 mana devoted to blah, blah, blah. You could change the devotion of up to 4 points of mana to different colors as well, such as devoting, okay. See, I actually like it whether it would be class, or maybe for a cleric, I might say not only class, but what divinity you choose. And depending on the portfolio of the god that you follow, that would have the mana. But that is an interesting way to do it. I would probably just tie it to your class, or again, if you're devoted to a school of magic, if we were applying this to schools and in addition, or, keeping that, or again, for maybe for warlocks, which he's going to cover separately, maybe, that would be something like, depending on your patron, right? Might depend what mana you get in for clerics. But it's an interesting idea, and I could definitely see for wizards, you could, it's kind of like what you're studying, so you can swap things around. Burning mana. Chapter 1 describes a spell point system with universal colorless mana that you can cast any spell. When adding color to the mana pool, burning mana has additional considerations based on the level of spell being cast. Okay. When casting a spell of 1st to 5th level, any color mana can be burned to pay the cost of casting. For example, a 5th level wizard with a pool of 16 mana devoted to blah 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 casts Fireball, a 3rd level red spell. While 3 red mana remains in the pool, Fireball can be cast repeatedly. The wizard can burn mana in any combination of color available in the pool to pay for each casting of the spell, such as 3 green, 2 blue and 1 red, 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black. But if this wizard chooses to burn more than 1 red mana, the wizard will have less than 3 mana in the pool and wouldn't be able to cast any additional 3rd level red spells. Okay, that's interesting. If instead 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black had been burned, 3 red mana would remain in the pool and the wizard could continue casting Fireball, but there would only be blah, blah, blah remaining in the pool and the wizard wouldn't be able to cast 3rd level white, blue, or black spells until the mana was recovered. So that's interesting, right? So you have to keep, if you want to cast whatever the highest level spell you want to cast, you have to make sure you have enough mana in that particular color pool to cast it. But if you meet that requirement, you can burn any colors, at least for the lower level spells, to do that, which I like, because it's that kind of you're giving them options, but there's risk and reward. If they decide to keep those 3 red mana, so they can just keep casting Fireball, but they deplete everything else, depending on how the encounters go and everything else, that might put them at a real disadvantage later on, but they're taking a gamble. High mana, 6th to 10th level. When casting a spell of 6th level or higher, the mana burned must all be devoted to the color of that spell. All right, so only for lower level spells can you do this. If you go higher, you must have the red mana or whatever the color mana available to cast. Cantrips and rituals. Cantrips don't burn mana, though each is devoted to a color. Spells cast as a ritual don't burn mana either. The act of casting produces the mana during the ritual. Okay. 5 color mana campaigns. As a spellcaster gains levels and more mana is added to the mana pool, you can choose to focus on casting one specific color of magic as a specialized caster, or to diversify across many colors as a generalist. This creates a new dynamic in balancing the flexibility of spell points by choosing how much of each color the mana pool is devoted to. This adds a level of character optimization where the game mechanic choices directly impact the style of spellcaster being portrayed. For example, a wizard devoted to white magic casting spells like Globe of Invulnerability, Sequester, and Imprisonment has a very different set of resources to solve challenges than a wizard devoted to black magic casting spells like Mass Suggestion, Otto's Irresistible Dance, and Dominate Monster. Right, so here he's talking about if I want to be a pyro, a fire mage, or I want to be a necromancer, right? You can use those colors. So they're basically saying, hey, you want to be a necromancer. I'm assuming necromancer is black color, or that, so you max out your black and then maybe you can put some other ones in first. If there's some other related spells that aren't black, then you can do that. And then you'll be the as powerful necromancer as you want. Of course, you're limited in a lot of other things. That's good. I mean, it's a good option, right? But, the optimization thing, obviously, lots of people love optimization. I think it can get carried away too far. But that's up to you. You want to go down that route, it is open to you. And, yeah, it does create some differentiation between 2 identical wizards. But they are, the way they've built their mana will make them play very differently. The wizard, of course, can cast any of these spells if there's enough white and black mana available, but having a deep pool devoted to a single color allows for new character themes and combat tactics. For example, a 17th level wizard with 45 black mana in the pool can cast Dominate Monster up to 4 times before finishing a long rest. The spellcaster can repeatedly turn enemies against each other in battle and bend the will of enemies to act as allies. But with only 20 mana not devoted to black, other colors are likely limited to common magic, burning black mana to do so or losing access to other colors. Yep, so again, that's a nice balancing factor. You can have all those spells to do Dominate Monster a few times, but you're going to be limited in what you can do. And remember, you can use your black pool to cast other spells if you want to keep those other colors in, but then that eliminates some of that strength. You can't be as necromantic as you want to because you're using up your black mana pool, but if you spend those other ones, then that limits anything outside the necromantic spells that you can do. And there's another cough. And an aftershock cough. All right. Another 17th level wizard with 13 mana devoted to each color can cast up to 9th level spells from all 5 colors, allowing for a book full of spells of every color at every level to tailor preparation to meet the challenges of upcoming adventures. Excuse me. Yes, and that would be the more stereotypical wizard. These two wizards venturing together as a team contribute their own style of heroics to the success of the adventure. And there they are. Buddy and Guy, together again. Heckle and Jekyll. Okay. 5 color character classes. Oh, here we have. I'm gonna start to kind of be a little bit more frugal with what I talk about. I'm gonna kind of start picking and choosing a little bit more about stuff that just interests me. So right here we have something that I'd mentioned before about kind of clerics and their mana pools, and here they're showing domains and the colors devoted to them. So death is black, knowledge is blue, life is green, light is white, nature is green, tempest is green, trickery is blue, and war is white. Is it interesting that war and light end up on the same color? I mean, same with knowledge and trickery. It's kind of interesting. Nature and tempest make sense. I mean, the other ones make sense. It was almost like a flip of the coin, right? The one side's knowledge, the other side is a deception. But the war and light is an interesting one. Okay, sacred spells. All right, I guess I'll read the text on sacred domain. Your chosen domain is devoted to a specific color. All right, the list below. Okay, sacred spells. When adding color to mana, your domain spells are now also devoted to your sacred color of mana. For example, a 7th level war domain cleric adds stone skin permanently to your list of prepared spells. Even though the spell is devoted to red, you could cast stone skin with 4 white mana in the pool instead of red. We got some druid circles. Let's see. Let's just read Circle of the Land. I like the Minotaur. Natural recovery. The amount of mana you recover is equal to or less than half your druid level, rounded up. Sacred spells. When adding color to mana, green mana is sacred to the druid. Your circle spells are now also devoted to green. For example, a 3rd level druid of the land swamp adds darkness and melts acid arrow permanently to their list of prepared spells. Even though both spells are devoted to black, you could cast either spell with 2 green mana in the pool instead of black. All right. I'm just going to skip through these. I don't need to go over all of these. But it's good to know, right? They have he's showing you how to adapt these different classes to the 5 color mana. So we had fighter, the Eldritch Knight, now the monk, paladins, rogues, sorcerers. All right, warlocks is interesting. So let's see how they do warlocks. Warlocks don't have a mana pool. The patron provides the mana when the spell is cast. Warlocks continue to use the spell slots as described in the player's handbook. Excuse me, again. Using this, Mystic Arcanum. Using this variant, Mystic Arcanum becomes high magic spell slots. You can cast any spell you know as Mystic Arcanum up to your max spell level. For example, a 13th level Warlock has 2 7th level Mystic Arcanum spell slots and knows 1 spell of 6th and 7th level. Devoted Pact. When adding color to magic, your patron is devoted to a specific color. The below list indicates which colors each patron can be devoted to. Your invocations and spells are devoted to this color. Archfey, blue or green. Fiend, black or red. Great Old One, blue or black. I guess you pick one in those ors columns. Wizards. Some extra stuff for them. I'm not going to read through. The tradition of white magic emphasizes binding, protection, radiance, and suppression. White magic savant. Okay, so this is a tradition you can add. That's cool. So we get some subclass action or class options, maybe is a better way of putting it. We have a blue magic tradition, black magic tradition, red magic tradition, green magic tradition. Multi-classing. The optional rule to multi-class remains unchanged as detailed in the player's handbook. When using universal spell points or adding color to mana, there are special considerations for when spellcasting characters multi-class as detailed below. All right, so they have a table there. I'm not going to read through it, but it's good to know that this is something that he's thought of and considered and is adding to it. I'm not enough of a rules wonk for 5th edition to be able to pick this apart and say whether it is good or not. And obviously, I'm just reading through these rules. I don't know them. But I'm glad that they're there because multiclassing is something that seems to be has a fairly big focus, at least among some of the base who multiclass a ton. And then if you're going to be multiclassing multiple potential spellcasting classes, you need to figure out how all this color magic or the color mana would work. So I'm glad it's there, but I'm going to skip it. We do have a variant feat, Color Magic Initiate. When adding color to mana, the total mana in your pool increases by 1 point. The mana gained may be devoted to any color you choose. You may take this feat more than once. You may choose the same or different color mana with each feat. The 2 cantrips and the first level spell learned with this feat must be devoted to the color of magic chosen. Wait a minute, did it say that we get one? It says learn. It doesn't say that you get a spell, but I guess you do. The 2 cantrips and the first level spell learned with this feat. Okay. Yeah, that. So I guess when you take the feat, it allows you to pick up 2 cantrips and a first level spell. But I might be not understanding it. There is an example. Let us read. For example, an 8th level Eldritch Knight devoted to black magic with a pool of 8 black chooses to gain the Magic Initiate feat devoted to green magic. Oh, is this the... Oh, okay. So maybe this is their version of the Magic Initiate. I don't know why I didn't put that together before. The cantrips Spare the Dying and Thorn Whip are selected as well as the first level spell Cure Wounds. The knight now has a mana pool of 8 black, 1 green, and may burn any mana to cast Cure Wounds while 1 green remains in the pool. The green mana can also be burned to cast other spells. Oh, okay, I get it. So I was looking at it like it was its own feat, but I guess they're saying, hey, this is the Magic Initiate, the version of the Magic Initiate feat if you use it in the system. My bad. Okay, we have some multi-class examples, which I will skip. I'm not going to go into the 10th level spells. They have a Wish variant, which sounds cool. An Epic Wish variant. And then they have some rules for simplified durations. I'm curious what so he's basically breaking it down into 3 types: instantaneous, persistent, and concentration. Persistent spells can be disrupted by targeting a spell effect with dispel magic or other similar means. A persistent spell can be detected by true seeing detect magic and similar spells as a faint magic aura of the color's devotion around the targets or area affected by the spell. And then there's some material, vegetable matter, stone or crystal, precious matter, gems, adamantine or mithril that corresponds to the spell levels. Vegetables is a 5, adamantine or mithril or adamantine or adamant. It's level 9. Let's see. If the caster chooses persistent spells that would end after completing a long rest can remain in effect without having to cast the spell again. When you complete a long rest, you may burn mana equal to the total levels of persistent spells sustained. Spells that last longer than 24 hours don't require burn for days. Okay. Some persistent spells have additional considerations using burn for days, as noted below. Contingency, creation, okay, all material remains until completing a long rest. When using burn for days, cast a spell at a higher level, no longer increases spell duration. Alternatively, spells level determines what type of material created can remain burned for days. Okay. All right. So then we're talking about concentration. Got some variant concentration rules, which I'm not going to go through, but they're here for you, for your viewing and using pleasure. Oh, I do want to see about tapping, so maybe I need this. Okay, I guess I do want to read this because this is, right, it's turn, tap, burn. What is it? Whatever the things from the title and from Magic, right? Tapping is a big thing. Tapping and turning. So let's see what tapping means. The following collection of variant rules offer options for maintaining concentration for multiple spells. Uh-oh. That might spell trouble. These variants can be used with both spell slots and mana. Okay, so let's get into it here. Tapping mana. Maintaining concentration for spells is referred to as tapping. When using variant tap rules, concentration spells don't burn mana until the spell has ended. For each level of spell maintained, an equal amount of mana is tapped. The mana progression table lists the max spell level that can be cast, which is also the maximum number of spell levels that can be maintained. When the spell ends, the tapped mana, spell slot, or sorcery points are burned as normal. Okay, so this is a delayed use. But it seems like with this, you can concentrate on multiple spells at once. You just can only hold as many as the levels add up to your max, right? So if you can cast 5th level spells, you can hold up to 5 levels of concentration, of 5 spell levels of concentration, which might seem like a lot. I don't know. I don't have an exhaustive list in my brain of, these are all the concentration spells, but it means you could do that, invisibility, which I think is concentration, and flight. So theoretically, if you had the mana or you had the levels, really, you could do that together. But obviously, it is balanced by your level. You can't go crazy with it. Let's see if there's any kind of drawback or any other balancing factors. For example, a wizard casts Charm Person by expending 1 mana. That mana is considered tapped while the spell is maintained. If the caster loses concentration, the spell immediately ends and the tapped mana is burned. Okay. Cantrips and invocations don't require mana, but for those that require concentration, they would also be considered tapped. Combined spell tapping. Okay, so I guess that first part is, I'm not sure what the point is of the tapping. So it seems like for this original variant, it's just 1 spell. And you would tap it, and I could see if you had a spell card, you could turn it sideways like you might do if you're playing Magic, and you could, if you were using some poker chips for your mana, you could put your poker chips on top. But at the end of the spell, you're gonna discard or put the poker chips in your spent mana pool. So I don't know why you just don't put them in your spent mana pool right away. I'm not sure what the benefit of keeping them out is, but maybe there's something else. But now there's a second related variant, which I guess is going to talk about maintaining multiple spells. So let's see, maybe that has some reason for holding on to your mana while they're concentrating. While the spells are being concentrated upon. This variant allows spellcasters to maintain multiple spells which have a combined spell level not exceeding their max spell level listed on the mana progression table. For example, a 5th level bard can maintain concentration for spells that total 3 levels. 1 3rd level spell, 3 1st level spells, or 1 2nd level spell with 1 1st level spell. Cantrips count as 1 level each, and Eldritch invocations count as the level of the spell effect duplicated. For instance, Mire the Mind duplicates Slow, and would count as a 3rd level spell, effectively tapping 3 mana. When maintaining multiple spells that can be controlled, such as moving a flaming sphere or changing the appearance of an illusion, only 1 spell can be effective with each action used. Okay. Multi-spell tapping. This additional variant allows a caster to maintain a total number of spells equal to the number listed. Isn't that what we just did? Wait, was that not combined spell tapping? Maintain multiple spells to have a combined. I'm not sure what the difference is. Oops, I'm not sure what the difference is. Well, let's read it. This additional variant allows a caster to maintain a total number of spells equal to the number listed. Okay, each spell counts as 1 regardless of spell level, including cantrips, rituals, and eldritch invocations. For example, a 5th level druid has a max spell level of 3. The druid can maintain concentration for up to 3 3rd level spells for a total of 9 tapped mana. Okay. It seems, I know it's slightly different than the other one, but I'm not sure I understand the nuanced difference between those two. Maintain multiple spells, which have a combined spell level. Oops. Maintain a total number of spells equal to the spell number listed. So I guess 1 works on a mana, some kind of a mana basis. I don't know. Okay, I'm not sure. I'd have to read that more closely. But I don't want to get too far in the weeds on that. I don't want to burn my brain out. The stream is young. Too early for that. Duplicative casting. This variant allows spellcasters to maintain concentration on multiple castings of the same spell. Multiple targets can be affected by different castings of the same spell if the target is not self only. Furthermore, no target can be affected by multiple castings of the same spell at once. For example, if 2 grease spells' areas of effect overlap, traveling through the area affected by both spells would only require 1 saving throw at the higher save DC. All right. Untapped simple magic. Untapping simple magic. Using this variant, a select number of concentration spells, referred to as simple spells, can be cast and dismissed at no cost. Okay, so I think this is where keeping your mana points kind of stored with the spell you're tapping comes into play. If the caster loses concentration while maintaining the spell, the mana is burned, but if dismissed, it may be untapped and the mana is immediately recovered to be used again. When casting the spell as simple magic, the mana or sorcery points tapped must be devoted to the color of the spell. These spells may be cast as common magic as normal by tapping any color, but the mana will burn if dismissed or disrupted. When using duration rules in the player's handbook, spells that expire at the end of the spell's duration are considered dismissed and untapped without burning. Okay. Oh, I guess then there's a... Okay, so he's giving a number of spells that are considered simple for these purposes. Comprehend languages, detect good and evil, detect magic, detect poison and disease. So we got a lot of detection type ones, and it kind of makes sense that you might be able to do those over and over again. Those are things that I wouldn't mind. I know some people get offended, like the old paladin, they can detect alignment, and people are like, well, how could you have an evil person there? You know, whatever. But I've never found that a particular hard thing to get around, and I don't mind if they know that they're evil. Let them know. You can't always do anything about it. Featherfall, Find Familiar, Speak with Animals, Tensor's Floating Disc, Unseen Servant. So these kind of what we might call the maintenance quality of life spells, if you will, that you can tap and untap. So I don't mind so much. Some of these other ones, I feel like, depending on your campaign, right, they may overpower wizards a bit much for my taste. Some of those variants that allow them like maintaining multiple spells and stuff, I don't know if I would use those, but I might use something like this and maybe adjust the list a little bit. But I really don't mind if they cast Tensor's Floating Disc a few times, or Speak with Animals, or Find Familiar. I don't know, that one, or Featherfall. Maybe those I wouldn't, but the other ones I probably would. But again, I'd have to think about it. But it's a nice thing. And then of course, if something comes along and they aren't able to dismiss them and they're disrupted instead, then they lose it. So there's a little bit of risk. I'd have to change my world. I would probably have to change the way my world works a little bit more, kind of dispel magic, maybe traps and things like that, to kind of keep them on their toes. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to be something where they felt like they could just spend it willy-nilly. But I think that's a cool idea. Something you could, it's also something you could adapt to like an OSR type game. You want to give the wizards a little love, right? In OSR games, old school D&D and whatnot, you don't have unlimited cantrips, but saying that you could kind of, you can even use it with your spell slots, right? You can tap a spell slot, say, okay, you're casting this first level spell, Floating Disc. And then if you're able to maintain it and nothing kills your disc, but it's going to dissipate naturally, then you'll get back your first level spell slot. I'm down with that. I'm out of my juice water. Class spell lists as simple magic. Using this further variant rule, when a caster gains additional spells from 1st to 5th level as a class or subclass feature, those that are concentration spells become simple magic as well. Class features in the player's handbook that add spells in this manner include Cleric Domain spells, Druid Circle spells, Paladin Oath spells, Warlock Otherworldly Patron spells. And then you have simple magic at higher levels. Using this further variant rule, when a caster gains 6th level spells, all 1st level concentration spells become simple and may use the rules of simple magic mechanics, tapping mana devoted to the color of the spell. That's another nice thing, right? You get to be mid-levels. Some of those 1st level spells, you've mastered them. They become easier to cast. Or not as easy to cast, but potentially you can get your mana back. see. Okay, so here they have a little section on concentration checks. Using this variant, the DC for maintaining concentration is 10 plus the total level of spells, rituals, and invocations tapped. Whew, that's a mouthful. Example time. 5th level druid using multi-spell tapping that maintains concentration for 3 third-level spells taps 9 mana. The concentration check is DC, or the concentration DC is 19. All right, that's pretty good. It's a little bit of a balancing thing, right? If you got someone who's just got a whole bunch of spells that they're trying to concentrate on at once, if they do have something that might affect their concentration, it's a high DC, which means they're likely to fail and then lose all of them. If you must make a Constitution saving throw to maintain concentration as a result of taking damage, the save DC isn't modified by the amount of damage dealt, instead of 10 or half the damage taken as outlined in the player's handbook. I might actually think of adding them both together, but that's just me being a hard blood. But, I would think about it more. You also risk losing concentration whenever you make a saving throw. That's good. By that same token, that's part of the example. The DM may also decide that certain environmental phenomena, such as a wave crashing over you while you're on a storm-tossed ship, requires you to succeed on a Constitution or other appropriate saving throw to maintain concentration. And the DM has final say. Let's see. There's a little, is there some kind of something? What does that say? Attrition? It's got a period before. Is that a typo? I'm not sure. I guess maybe it is. Can't tell. It's not a speck on my monitor as far as I can tell. When a spellcaster is maintaining concentration in difficult or hostile conditions, DMs are encouraged to frequently challenge the caster's concentration to put tapped mana at risk of being burned. Yes, this is definitely a good thing if you're doing that. But, don't go overboard because someone's going to feel like you're targeting them unfairly, right? If every couple minutes you're doing it, but at the same time, if you're allowing them to concentrate on multiple spells, I feel like you got to up the ante on holding on to all those spells. The time between attrition checks depends on the severity of conditions. The greater the severity, the more often spellcasters experience attrition, as noted below. So mild, 4 hours, moderate, 2 hours, strong, 1 hour, severe, 10 minutes, extreme, 1 minute, unnatural, 1 round. Yeah, I think I might. It's interesting. Moderate is 2 hours. Yeah, I'd probably, again, you can obviously edit these however you like. I feel like, because again, I kind of go with OSR kind of rules and the sort of the exploration rounds and kind of the sort of like the clock is kind of an hour is sort of the standard clock for adventuring. I would probably have that be your moderate, which would be my starting base point for if you're in a dungeon. And that would probably change it from there. Maybe I wouldn't need the unnatural. Maybe just extreme, which would just include unnatural, be 1 round and kind of bump everything around accordingly. But certainly not a bad set. And then, again, for me, the old school adventuring hour, 6 adventuring is one of those 6 exploration turns, making that kind of exploration hour, that one sort of, if you will, a round of turns, has to be kind of a short rest theoretically, unless you pick up exhaustion. So that makes it a fine point when you're taking that breather to have to make that check to say, hey, you're still keeping everything. That's why I kind of thought moderate would make sense there. But either way, I mean, you might say that keeping this chart as is and just say like, hey, you're in a dungeon, it's strong. If you're in the wilderness moving, it's moderate, and then mild would be you're at a camp or kind of a safe spot, which makes sense too. Let's see. Conditions that impose attrition checks include standing very still, holding your breath, enduring a detrimental spell effect, loud or repetitive noise, blinding light or darkness, maintaining scrying and other divination magic, research or crafting tools used. All right. Oh, here they have some environments. This is good too. Examples of environments warranting attrition include hail, sand or snowstorm, ships at sea in rough waters, alternate plane of existence, airborne during a lightning storm, airborne during high winds, underwater, ash or smoke-filled air, extended climbs. Environments that may be ignored by Rangers' natural explorer class feature include uneven cavern floors, dense forest and jungle, heat and humidity, freezing cold. When traversing hostile terrain or during a hostile condition, make an ability concentration saving throw at the frequency of the severity listed. If the saving throw spell fails, concentration is disrupted. Yep. Ooh, there's paying attrition. To prevent a spellcaster from losing all maintained spells and subsequently recasting them all again under dangerous circumstances, the spellcaster may choose to automatically succeed the attrition check by burning the mana maintained. Aha. If there's not enough mana remaining in the pool to pay attrition, concentration is checked as normal. I like that. That's a nice little a nice little wrinkle, right? You want to make sure you can cast this and you know you're in a dangerous spot. You are airborne during a lightning storm, then hey, you can burn more mana to make sure you hold on to it, right? I like it. That's good. Decent. When paying attrition to maintain concentration condition, frequencies don't stack. Wait. When paying attrition to maintain concentration, okay, comma, condition frequencies don't stack. Mana is only burned at the rate of the most frequent condition. Can't jam them with having all kinds of things come up. If you have one frequency that's a 2 hours, and when it's 4 hours, you can't, oh, well, this 2 hours is within the 4 hour one, so we're going to hit you twice. No, you get hit one time. That's fair. I get it. Makes sense. For example, a druid using multi-spell tapping maintains Water Walk, Speak with Plants, and Locate Creature while chasing a Sahuagin scout along jagged coral during a storm. That's a cool use case for doing that, right? Walking among the jagged coral is moderately difficult, requires a dexterity saving throw every 2 hours spent tracking. The storm is strong, requiring a constitution throw every hour spent tracking. The high waves throw the druid against the jagged coral, requiring a strength saving throw every 10 minutes spent tracking them down. For each attrition saving throw failed, 10 mana is burned, and the druid risks drowning. Instead, you may choose to burn 10 mana every 10 minutes to automatically succeed to continue tracking the Sahuagin scout. Alternatively, you can dismiss some of the spells to reduce the overall cost, such as dismissing Speak with Plants and Water Walk to reduce attrition to only 4 mana on failed checks, but limiting the druid to walking atop the coral or having to swim in the storm. Right? So it may make sense given the conditions that if those spells drop, it might be difficult to cast them again. So you can keep spending. But obviously that spending is reducing your overall mana pool. So you have choices to make. And I like that. You have choices, you have costs, and you have options, which are all good things in my book. Allied unit variant rules. This is interesting. It doesn't seem to match the other stuff in the book, but let's see what it is. This variant rule offers alternate mechanics to command NPC allies and companions during combat. Okay. Allies are any conjured creatures, followers, pets. Okay, blah, blah. An allied unit is a minimum of one ally. Groups of creatures under a character's control, such as hirelings, conjured creatures, or any portion of the group is one allied unit. Characters that control allies' actions referred to as commanders. Let's just see the example here. A 4th level druid has burned 6 mana casting Animal Friendship to charm a pack of wolves 2 at a time. The druid may use a bonus action to command up to 2 of the wolves. The remaining 4 will attack and defend themselves to the best of their ability. Okay. So basically, commanders must spend a bonus action to command one allied unit, which takes its turn immediately during your bonus action. Otherwise, allied units attack and defend themselves to the best of their ability or follow the last command they receive. Excuse me. The DM has final word on how many allies can be commanded in one bonus action. So I guess the example is saying that, I guess there's something implied in this example that the druid has burned 6 mana casting Animal Friendship to charge a pack of wolves 2 at a time. And I guess somewhere in there, the GM said, okay, you can you can command them. You can be a commander, but you can only command 2 of them at once because they were. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that works together. Is it because the spell allowed them to do 2, so those 2 become allied? Not sure, but it's there. It's obviously if you have multiple creatures, that seems to be a better option than having to give each one a command. And they have some rules for Rangers companions. I won't go into that, but there's some. I don't know how this would play with the official variant Ranger. I think there's more variant Ranger coming. I mean, there's a few variants, but I mean, I'm talking about to the Beastmaster, I guess, maybe coming with whatever that was. It Tasha's whatever book. Insert that name of the book in your own brain if you remember it, which is not out yet at the time of this recording. Okay, sources of magic variants, sources of magic. All right, I'm not going to go through all these, but we have some different things, some additional mechanics, some examples, some magic items. The Rod of Sorcery. Let's see. Oops, something went bump in the day. These rods come in 4 different varieties. A creature attuned to a Rod of Sorcery can tap and burn mana while casting a spell to apply one of the following meta magic effects to the spell, depending on the type of rod. Mana tapped using a rod counts towards concentration check DC when maintaining concentration. And here are some samples: the Rod of Careful spells, the Rod of Distant spells, Rod of Twin spells. That's cool. You can get one of those rods and use some of those meta magic effects. Whoa, the Mana Blasting Staff that looks a lot like something that a Space Marine would carry, but it's cool. The Guardian Staff. That's supposed to be just a staff that looks like a shield. Maybe that's why it's the Guardian Staff. A Mind Spike. A Mana Resonator. Yeah, that's cool if you want to do some kind of Thundar the Barbarian or some other kind of sci fantasy. Mana Generator, a Life Tap. And here we have some implementing the variant rules, which I won't go into because I think we just kind of read through them all, but it's getting more, some more information, some more how-to on getting this all set up. I like that. Some sample color mana characters. Also very good. I will not go through these, but again, I like that they're here. I like that so often sometimes you read these materials and they don't give you a lot of the material things that might be good, not just for, oh, here's an example if I need it, but also you can see if you wanted a more of an example of, okay, how would I build out a character? You can kind of see through the choices there a little bit more about how the mechanics work. So very good, very good. And here we have the spell class spell list also laid out in the colors. All those. I'm just clicking through these, and then, oh, there you go, your mana flow chart. I like that. So it's something you could print out and use to track mana during a game. Probably could find some way to convert that for online play and Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, something. And here's some other books that Phil has worked with. Excellent. And that is Tap, Untap, Burn. What are my final thoughts? So final thoughts on Tap, Untap, Burn. I'm just scrolling back up to the top here. I thought it did a really excellent job. Now, obviously, I'm reading this. I haven't played through it, so I cannot speak to if there is some gotchas out there, some weird, not weird, but just, those kind of balancing issues that sometimes come up. Obviously, there are some of the variants clearly would kind of up the power level. And I can't tell I'm reading them if they're balanced. There definitely are balancing factors. So you have the multiple concentrations, but then it affects the concentration checks. Those things. Being able to concentrate on multiple spells at once seems like a big power bump for wizards. I know I see a lot written, and people say, hey, do you, people I see will come up with things like, oh, what if I let my wizard characters concentrate on 2 spells at once? And you usually see most people saying, no, don't do it, it's terrible, it'll kill your game. I don't know, but it obviously is something that I recognize. If you let wizards concentrate on multiple things at once like that, it does have the capability to affect that power curve in a potentially negative way. Whether it does or not, I don't know, but there are, again, it gives you some balancing factors. Whether that's enough in your mind to make it worthwhile, I don't know, but it's just a variant. You can use a bunch of things in here without touching that. I like the idea of the simple spells, and that there's some that you can get allowed to get your mana back from, or your spell points, if you just want to spell slots of whatever you're using. Get your spell casting currency, whatever that is, back. So you have Tensor's Floating Disc. It works for 10 minutes. And then if nothing happens to dispel it or destroy it, then you get your mana back and you could cast it again. I think that's a cool thing. I think it gives a little bit of a bump to wizards. Again, I could see using that in an OSR type of game if you wanted to let your wizards feel like they have a little bit more to do, but not getting too much, right? Because you could define which spells are simple. So you could easily say, okay, these are simple, and then your combat spells or other spells are not. So that you could balance a little bit that way, but you're still giving them a little bit of a perk. That's cool. I think the colors is a cool concept. Again, I know nothing about Magic, but just the idea of giving a little extra, right, narrative as far as being able to describe things in terms of those colors, and then the mechanical part, because you're not just describing colors because they feel something to you in that moment. It's colors that will actually have a mechanical importance, and then you can have that player or character knowledge if you want to tie it to Arcana checks, something like that, or you just want to say, hey, to your players, here's what these colors mean. Now you decide if I tell you your character sees a swirl of red and white mystic energy, you have to use your brain to figure out what that means, right? I can see adapting that again for use in OSR, using those colors. You could even use those colors if you didn't want to use the Magic the Gathering colors. You could take Abjuration and say, okay, that's red, and I don't even know why I'm spacing out on Evocation, maybe is white, whatever. You could adapt those colors in many different ways, but it's a cool system. And I think using those pools, saying as a character, either you're raising levels and you can decide where your mana pools go, or like I was thinking maybe as a class feature or for clerics, right? Depending on the gods they worship and whatnot, you would have pools. You could have so many red, so many white. Maybe if you didn't have one color at all, then you couldn't cast them. And then you can really have some fun playing with. They had the thing with the lower level spells where you can use any spell color to cast it, but maybe you would say make some kind of conversion, like I was talking about earlier before I got to that part of the book. But I think there's a lot in here, and I think it's a lot that is would be worthwhile for your game. I don't know how much this runs for on the DM's Guild, but it is, we're looking at 74 plus pages. Let me see if I scroll down to the bottom. What's the last? Yeah, 74 pages. I don't know if that's including the table of contents and the cover and whatnot, but still, you're talking 70 plus pages. And there's a lot of good stuff in here. You get some extras, I think, as part of the package, things you can print out to make this a good transition, to make it easier to track some things. Obviously, using mana and using this stuff does add some extra tracking. You're already doing some tracking with spell slots, or if you're using spell points, but this does add another layer if you're tracking what colors you have. You're adding that on top of it. But I think you get a lot in this package. I think there's a lot of stuff that is, as I said, as someone who plays a lot of OSR D&D, that I could pull out if I wasn't playing 5th edition and pull that out. I think he tried to cover all the bases really well. I think there's lots of examples, which is good. There's whole example characters in the back. All those variants I feel like are pretty well explained. There's maybe one that kind of I got caught up a little bit and thinking about. I'm not quite sure what the difference was, but I'm sure if I read it another time or two, I would get it. But yeah, I think it's excellent. I don't think there's anything I didn't like. It's laid out well. I could read all of it. Nothing was confusing in that regard. Sometimes, particularly when you're dealing, with individuals, a lot of people in DM's Guild, you're small. You're a single creator. I'm a single creator. So sometimes my ideas for what might be laid out well, when I look at it or give it to somebody else, suddenly they're like, it doesn't make sense to me. And I know that I've commented with other things I've looked at, thinking like, oh gosh, this is not laid out in a way that makes it easy for me. But I felt like this is laid out very well. It's got some nice art in it. I think that's one thing. I think with the DM's Guild, right, you get access to a lot of art, so that it's easy to fill your book with decent art, but still, it's good. So yeah, thumbs up on Untap, Burn. And later on, when I get back to it, I will put a link directly to the DM's Guild with this in it, so you can get that. Let's see what's next. What's next on the medley? Should I go right to do creature feature? So yeah, I'll go and do creature feature. Creature feature, feature creature. This is another one that gives you a full, get some bang for your buck. Let's see, it's got a, let me get the cover up here. Let's get you going. Ba-da-bum. Okay. This is designed for use with old school essentials. So we went from a 5th edition supplement to a old school essentials OSR supplement. This one was the first of, I think the third one is in the final phase of Indiegogo. And when I get a chance, I will post a link to the Indiegogo for that. That would be volume 3. This is volume 1. This is the cover. The one way this is set up is you get a zip file, which has a few things into it. So one thing in the extras is that we've got this document, and this actually has the cover as a separate file from the PDF. So I'm showing the cover right now. When we get to the PDF, it's just going to show the table of contents. So just for purposes of having something nicer to look at. Besides that, I have this cover up. Obviously, you can get a sense of the art style here, but you also get paper minis, files that you can print out for for creating paper minis, and then also tokens for virtual tabletops. They are in, looks like they're all in PNG format, and I don't know anything about different tabletop, what their formats are, but for example, you get something like that. So this would be a PNG, so obviously there's transparency there, and then the image, so you can use that, and I'm guessing Fantasy Grounds Roll20, whatever will take PNGs, will accept PNGs as image files. So you get, again, they're right, there's a few things in here. So you don't only have the PDF here, which will have everything, but you have virtual minis and printable minis. And then we'll see. So there's no real intro, right to the table of contents. I'm not going to read all of these. One thing, and again, it's really more of a stylistic thing. So here's the creature, right? I probably would have liked if we could have fit it on here because it just seems weird and to have that and then that and then that, or maybe started that over here, but we like the artwork. And by the way, I really like this. I like the artwork for the creature, but I also like that you have some kind of scale. And they could have done this in different ways, but I kind of like here you have just sort of a vanilla, humanoid, medium creature here, so you can kind of get a sense for a feel. Because sometimes I like to do that if I'm describing an encounter. I like to say something like it's about 3 man sizes tall, right? It feels like 3, whatever. And I can eyeball that and say, okay, that's around 2. And it doesn't have to be exact because they're not taking out a tape measure, but they're looking at it. So yeah, this is 2 man heights tall, kind of thing. So here we have the Arbori, large feline humanoids with a primitive tribal culture. At 1, okay, so large, we know the size, you get something about it, it's humanoid, and I also like to give this little thing, so maybe if I'm reading this on the fly, a random encounter, I just can eyeball that, and I can kind of get a sense of the kind of culture that these creatures have. It's tribal, and it's maybe not as advanced as the culture that the PCs might be familiar with. A box has got all the essentials, their armor class, hit dice, attacks, THAC0, their movement rates, saving throws, their alignment, their morale. Always good to have morale, how much experience they get, and then what is NA? NA and treasure type. Okay, NA. Oh, number appearing. I might use a hash instead of the N, just because that, to me, if I read hash A, I would have said, oh, number appearing would have triggered better than NA. But that works. So we can see right here, they have poison. Those that fail a save suffer -2 to all rolls for 1d6 turns, and their movement is halved. They have a little bit of a resistance towards cold and poison, and they are very, very stealthy, even though they're large. So they're large, but they are stealthy. Let me get the picture. Here we see the description. You see a large and muscular humanoid with a broad, slightly feline head. Its face is framed by tufts of fur Its eyes are large and round, sitting low in its face, framing its snout. The eyes are highly reflective and seem adapted to low light conditions. The creature's mouth is also quite wide and brimming with menacing fangs. The front four are dagger-like, but the canine teeth curve outwards like scimitars. The teeth seem to have an oily sheen to them. That's a little hint about the poison, I would gather, which I like it, right? So if you get this description and you're, as a player, you don't jump the gun and just say, I attack, but you listen, then maybe you think about that oily sheen, might give you a little pause. Maybe you think, oh, something's different with those giant teeth. They're not just giant and nasty and dagger-like and scimitar-like, but they seem to be coated in some kind of substance. Its hands and feet are tipped with thick and vicious-looking claws. They look to be equally useful for combat and climbing. So another hint, I'm assuming, maybe I'll just go back really quick. They have a climbing speed. Yep, they have a good climbing speed. So again, another hint in the description. You can get a little bit of their abilities. Despite the creature's obvious capacity for violence, it moves with a gentle grace. In this aspect, it also appears somewhat feline, seemingly tranquil and languid until the moment it strikes. The being will not attack unless hungry or provoked. The being, okay. I might have just used the name of the creature, but I guess this is, they don't say specifically, but this obviously seems something you might want to read to the players, or you could read, and so they obviously don't want to put the name of the creature, the species in there, but I don't know, being, maybe I might have said creature, but whatever, you can freelance with these as much as you want. Will not attack unless hungry or provoked. It speaks a heavily accented form of Elvish and will attempt to communicate with those it thinks are non-threatening. All right, so there you go. I just wanted to see that it doesn't give an intelligence, but I guess it has a primitive. That's where some kind of intelligence might have been good in there, right? Because this one, if you look at the picture, it seems like just a giant, nasty, cat-like creature, but obviously it's capable of speech. I was going to say it's neutral alignment. All right. And I like, so here we go. We got the description, which was good, right? Player facing. Now we have an area on lore, which I'm guessing is going to be more GM facing, but you can obviously peel off some knowledge here to spit out to your players if they make the whatever checks you want to make, or if they have a background or something else that might make it appropriate. These creatures are known as arbori or arbori. Their origin is a bit murky. The reclusive nature of the species has hampered any significant research of them, but there are some observations and speculation. Some sages claim the species originated in a laboratory and are kin to owlbears. But while owlbears are much more bestial and seemingly incapable of forming even a rudimentary society, the arbori have a developed tribal culture. They have defined social structure with a chief and shaman at the top. They live about 50 years and mate for life. They tend to have 3 or 4 offspring, which reach maturity within 5 years. On a technical note, I'm not sure why there's so many sentences beginning with but. Sorry, I'm just being picky. I just happened to notice that. But we got some cool little lore here. They're reclusive. One thing I might do, and again, this is just me, is this is something where I'd like to see bullet points, because then I can grab out a bullet point and see, maybe even have it on a table, right? Things that might be known. Roll 1d6, and you're going to get maybe bits of these. 1 might be, hey, they're known as arbori. 2 might be they're reclusive. 3 might be, thing about potentially from a laboratory. And maybe put parentheses rumor, right? Or made in a lab. And that kind of thing. Or you could structure them and like, here's the easy stuff, here's the harder stuff, here's the stuff that barely anybody knows. Here we get a little bit more about the saliva. The saliva of an arbori is quite poisonous. They use this to their advantage when hunting larger and more powerful creatures. They often use pack hunting tactics and their environment to their advantage as well. A common example of their hunting practice is herding some huge beasts, such as a mammoth, into a narrow canyon, where a large group of the hunting party is waiting patiently in rocky scrub overhead. Rocky scrub overhead. Okay, so the rocky scrub must be on the top of the canyon. Because, you don't think of scrub as being floating in midair. Once the beast is in the trap, they spring down onto its back and begin to savage it with envenomed tooth and rending claws. Excuse me. This tactic has proven quite effective for them. Okay, so I'm guessing that really the canyon, which is must be relatively shallow. Otherwise, you can't see dropping from the Grand Canyon screaming down, but they kind of hide up top. In comes the prey, which gives you some ideas of how that they might encounter the party. Again, with this, it's great information. I feel like for quick use, I might like these bold pointed out. Or even give me some bolding, something to say, hey, pack tactics, right? They'll use pack tactics. They like preferred. It could be something you could say, hey, preferred, and where you might encounter them. Preferred hunting thing is canyons, ambushing from above, maybe, because then you could think, okay, maybe they're in the trees because they can obviously climb that aspect, even though they're heavy. Depending on the forest, if you're in giant redwoods, they could be up there. In this case, it's great information, but in the paragraph form, it reads well, but I have to read through it to get it. And for something like this, my use case, I guess, would be like, hey, bullet points, but still, it's great information. And here we get the ecology. As their name would suggest, most arborii can only be found in forests. They seem to prefer colder climates, although there are rumors of a jungle variety as well. They are a generally peaceful and reclusive folk that prefer to construct their settlements deep within thick and ancient forests, far from the realms of mankind. They avoid cities completely, but have been known to barter with small settlements of woodland folk from time to time. Okay, so we get a little right there in forests, maybe in jungles. Not big on cities, but every once in a while someone could run into contact with them. I am officially out of drinking fluids. Here we go. They call it seeds, but I guess this is really adventure seeds. I might just spell out. Again, pet peeve time. Why call it seeds? Just spell out adventure seeds. You have plenty of room there. Just make it clear. I know, for a lot of people, we talk in terms of adventure seeds, but remember, somebody might get this who's not. They might read seeds and kind of go, what is that? And then you have to kind of read below to figure out what they meant up top, where there's just, I think calling it adventure seeds or adventure prompts, but just put adventure on the end of it. And you can use, if you want to talk about it later and call it seeds, kind of if you're talking about it a lot in a section, that's fine. But here we're just getting bulleted points, and there wasn't an intro that was letting us know how this worked. Just called adventure seeds. But given that criticism merely of the layout part aspect of it, I appreciate very much the fact that they have given us seeds for these. There are 2 of them, so that is bonus, right? I just wish, because I know what they're talking about, but I just feel like if you're doing this for an audience of whomever it might be, right? Someone who's potentially 10 or 12 or somebody who's coming at it, knows nothing about it, but they saw this stream and they said, let me go out and get it. Since there's no particularly since there's no introductory text, and even if there was, just spell it out. You've got room on the page. You wouldn't have had to redo any kind of layout work to get that in there. Anyhow, let's get on to what these seeds are. A small group of arborii has approached the party's campfire in the night. Their intentions are peaceful, but how will the party respond to these fearsome giants silently padding into the firelight? Why have the arborii made their presence known to the party? Do they wish to trade? Do they want the party to leave their territory? Perhaps they would like to warn them of a greater threat in the woods. So here we have could be a random encounter. You could add this to your encounter table, and it gives you some ideas. Or maybe you've added this to your encounter table, and when you look them up, you could look at this and say, okay, why are they here? It doesn't have to be violent. And maybe I would think about what are the party doing? How might these tie in, to that? So that's good. And here's another one. A new human settlement has set about clearing some woodland to make way for farms. They have encroached upon the territory of an arborii tribe and have drawn their ire. Perhaps the encroachment was innocent enough, but now the consequences are mounting. Perhaps the tribe begin to fight back by damaging farm equipment and homes. If that fails, they move on to stealing livestock. A direct physical confrontation will be the tribe's last resort, but it will be inevitable if the settlement continues. Why has the party been brought into this situation? Are they here to investigate, negotiate, or exterminate? So whereas the other one was more of a random encounter, I feel like seed, it could be an adventure seed, right? But, you just get the sense that they're out camping, that there's something already going on, and that is the adventure. And then this could either be a wrinkle or a twist to that adventure, or, a random seed or something else, or just a random encounter, and they can make of it what they will. But this one seems more like a real adventure where you could look at this and say, okay, the party's been summoned here, and I'm this GM. I'm going to figure out why they've done it, or why the party's brought in, why the arborii, or what the arborii have done, what the settlement has done. I watched a few weeks ago, I think it was a Stargate SG-1 episode that was a lot like this, where there was it Naquina or whatever the substance that starships are made of on that show, and they'd gone us through some Stargate to some world that had these Naquina mines that still had some good Naquina in them. They had to dig in and get it, but this other slave species, so the what are they called? What's the name of the bad guys? The name is on the tip of my tongue, but I am forgetting it. Anyway, those bad guys, the Guaul, I guess, or however they pronounce it, used humans as slaves. They also use these other creatures as slaves. They use these other creatures who actually are kind of similar in some ways to their Arbori, but they're kind of strong. They're big. They're primitive society. I don't know if they lived in trees and they weren't feline to my recollection, but maybe they were. We're already living there, and so they had to figure out how to make it all work. And one of the guys, the one scientist guy, the kind of James Spader guy from the movie, but the TV show version, had through earlier episodes had become friends with one, and he spoke a little bit of the language, so he was able to kind of work out this detente for it. But it's very similar. I wouldn't even doubt it if the idea for this came from that, because it does have a lot of very similarities, at least in that adventure hook. And here we have some loot, right? Spears, skulls, rocks, and assorted shiny things. Fetish tomes, slings, nets, a leather sack containing assorted berries, salted meat, unknown origin. I'm not sure what that means. That means it could be salted human meat, salted dwarf meat, stone tools, and a primitive tinder kit. One thing I might do here is put them in a list. I always like things where if I have a die or I don't know, I can roll a die to figure it out. So I'm always put, hey, look, if you have something that seems like a list, put it in a list, put numbers, and maybe round it to the nearest die. That way, even if you don't say roll a die, I can look at it and say 12, D12, 20, whatever. I just like that. So I would say do that. And the thing is that maybe I would split these up. I said one of them seems more like a random encounter, and one of them seems more like an adventure seed. I know you could run the first one as an adventure seed. It just reads to me more like something I might just put into an existing adventure. And then I might take that and kind of just lay it out a little bit differently, because I'm thinking about it in terms of if I have it and I got a minute to look at it and get everything I need. So I want things that allow me to do that. And the paragraphs, I have to read through that, which means, I can't grab it quite as quickly. I have to kind of read it, interpret it, and then spit it out, I can just kind of find the bullet list. But great stuff. So I'm just going to go through some of these. I don't want to read them all. Obviously, there's how many of these have? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 of these. But let me just see which one's interesting. So they are Arbori, very cool. Blade Wraiths, that one looks cool. Cerebarian, right? Or Cerebaran from Cerberus, right? The dog of the underworld, hound of the underworld. Devourer. I'll read the Devourer. That one looks pretty cool. An accursed race of degenerate giants, and their heads are a little more than fanged maws sprouting from their shoulders. Oh, that's cool. I thought about something. So I said before I would have rather they put the pictures on the page with the descriptions. But I wonder now if they do that so that you could have that handout, and say, here's the monster, and it's not giving away any other details, which is a smart thing. The only thing I might then do is have the other stuff on this page. Like, I feel like there's just a lot of dead space here that makes me go past the picture to get to it. And I might do the picture, then all the text can just flow, and I can maybe have a better flow to it. But it's a small niggle. But now I'm thinking about it, maybe it makes sense that they would put the picture on its own page. That way you could either traditionally print it out or have a printed version and show it, or on a virtual thing, put it up on something you can share on your VTT of choice. So these guys have HD 15 hit dice, so they're big fellas. 2 claw attacks. Got their THAC, their movement, saving throws. Let's see, they can blind sight, so they can quote unquote see in total darkness. They're immune to sensory attacks. They're immune to mind affecting or mind reading style spells. They can only harm them with magical attacks, and they can swallow you whole if they roll 20 or 4 more than the target number. I always like that. Like the X more than the target. I might round it to 5 instead of 4, but that's me. Let's see, and if you're horse-sized or smaller, I might just use medium. I don't know, but I know in OSR they don't really give you sizes. That's one of the things I have to say that from the modern game I like is looking at something and having some kind of ballpark idea without having to parse out a lot what size it is compared to regular. So I guess I would say that, I don't know, is a horse large or medium? Maybe a horse is large, so large or less. Let's see, may attack. Oh, okay, inside. If you're inside, you suffer 3 to 6 damage per round. You can attack with sharp weapons at -4. The body's digested in 6 turns after death. So I guess if you are digested and killed and you want to try to get that person out for some kind of resurrection or whatnot, you need to get that body out in less than 6 turns. That's pretty fast. 6 turns, it's an hour. They got fast stomachs. Fast stomachs. All right, so now we can see how, they are huge, right? I like, again, we have our, not only the picture, but also an idea of the scale. So they are super big, and yeah, definitely looks like they could get that whole silhouetted dwarf fighter human type into their mouths in one bite. All right, let's get to the description. A towering monstrous humanoid larger than a 2-story inn. I think is that how you spell it? 2-story? It's spelled EY here, and think Y, but I don't know. I could have it wrong, and maybe it's a British English versus American English thing. It has no head beyond a gaping, fang-filled maw. It has long, muscular arms tipped in vicious-looking claws and stubby legs. The beast appears largely insensate. It doesn't respond to sight, scent, or sound, but has a basic awareness of its immediate vicinity, at least as much as appears necessary to continue its path of gluttonous carnage. That's a sentence fragment, I believe, but okay. Maybe it's a stylistic thing, like starting sentences with butts, and here's a fragment, but that just might be the kind of tone that this author has. As it goes about stuffing whatever bits of flesh it can find down its gullet, it burps and farts. Okay, not sure I need to know that. TMI there. What's it called again? Devourer. TMI, Devourer. Occasionally it pauses for a few moments and mumbles a string of nonsense syllables. Scholarly PCs might recognize it as an ancient dialect of the language of giants. This is not an effort to communicate. The creature seems incapable of communication. Well, that's an interesting kind of red herring, right? So if they hang around and listen to it for a while or observe it, they could potentially get a string of random gibberish that's in giantish, and that might lead them to try to go and try to do something along those lines, but it is all for naught. And you could have some fun with them trying to figure out or how long they will take, what steps they will take that will ultimately fail with them trying to communicate or leverage this giantish gibberish that it speaks. Here we have some lore. Legend says that Devourers were a race of giants that possessed the hubris to wage a war against a god. As a punishment, the deity took their heads. Those heads now adorn plushly upholstered alcoves in the god's favorite cottage somewhere. A little humor. Unfortunately for the multiverse, the Devourers possess the supernatural vitality of all the ancient giants, and their bodies did not die once separated from their heads. The necks instead grew teeth, which then over time turned into a gaping, fang-filled maws. And eventually, a noble race of giants degenerated into portly, mumbling, self-propelled appetites with the strength to level villages. Luckily, as the centuries passed, their numbers seem to be decreasing. All right, so that's a nice story, right? Ecology. Devourers are blind, deaf, and lack a true sense of smell. In some limited manner, they are able to scent at the air using their tongues as a snake does. To compensate for these limitations, the creatures have developed an unknown way to sense their immediate environment. But this sense does not convey much beyond the presence of something existing and that thing's proximity. Additionally, the range of the sense is quite limited. All right, so they are clearly not going to be scanning out, right? They get a little bit of what's in front of them. I don't know if I saw if they gave a distance. Blind sight. They don't give a distance. That might be something to add here as well. Exactly what is that? So they're big. So even if something's not far away relative to them, might be 60 feet or 90 feet. And that seems a lot for a medium-sized person, but they're huge. So to them, instead of it being, oh my gosh, 10 body lengths away, to them, it's only a couple of body lengths away. So I might like to know the number But of course, I can always figure it out myself. Let's see. The supernatural vitality that once infused them has waned over the centuries, and they can now be truly slain. But the same mortality makes their hunger even more acute. Their colossal bodies require massive amounts of calories. For any that encounter a devourer, the wisest recourse is simply to flee. The creature's limited perceptions make them relatively easy to avoid, and eventually their hunger will drive them to seek sustenance elsewhere. As the centuries pass, the number of these creatures are indeed shrinking. Many are slain or die in some foolish way, and the chances of a male and female encountering and successfully mating are also exceedingly rare, although not unheard of. Okay, so you're not going to see these a lot. Here we have some seeds. Let's see, this time we get 3. A depraved wizard has been breeding devourers in captivity. Does he plan to merely keep them as oddities in a menagerie? Does he hope to utilize them as troops? Is he experimenting on them for some other mysterious or nefarious purpose? Right. So again, this one doesn't read so much as an adventure seed, though it could be if you add the language of somebody's heard of this wizard or word has gotten out, and somebody somewhere has another plan, right, that you would then be recruited as adventurers to do. Oops, I'm just adjusting my seat here. My seat has slipped. Ugh. Right. So there's, as it stands, that seems, again, more like a random encounter kind of thing. Maybe you come across this wizard's house and you see it, but it could be an adventure seed. Just needs a little bit more. You'd have to think about a little bit more of how the adventurers get this information and what the angle is. Maybe the wizards hired them for some needs. Maybe someone else has hired them to stop them. You know, the ASPCA, or what's the other one? You know, they're keeping devourers in captivity, which is bad. Okay, a cult has stumbled upon rituals that will allow them to summon and control these monsters. They are in the process of summoning as many devourers as possible. They plan to offer the nearest village as a sacrifice and then enact a ritual to enslave the beasts. Right, so could be a random encounter. Could also be an adventure seed, but we'd have to add in the extra bits about how we're getting this information, and then whoever has that information, what do they want the party with, or what does the party decide to do with that information? And then the third one, a guild of monster hunters has recruited the party to exterminate a small family of devourers infesting a distant kingdom. They have reports of at least 1 mated pair and 3 whelps currently wreaking havoc. The work will be dangerous and the pay high. So this one's more of a true adventure seed in that you have a party who has an angle on the scenario, which is these rampaging family devourers, and now they are asking the party to go and deal with it, right? That's what the other 2 seeds here are lacking. They're more just giving you a situation, which when you kind of hand that off to me, I feel like more is something you could add to a random sort of encounter situation, or maybe if you're hex crawling, right, you could mark out a hex and mark it with, here's the depraved wizard breeding devourers, and then here's where the cult and maybe the town, and then the cult out here in the distance. So you could use them in different ways. But that third one seems more like this is more of a traditional, as much as in this instance, fully fleshed out adventure seed. And then we have some loot. All devourers' loot will be contained in this massive gut. As a general rule of thumb, there will be 1d4 semi-digested adventurers and their gear. This is in addition to what is indicated by treasure type E. However, items that are not durable enough to withstand its stomach acid will not exist. So, items such as scrolls, staves, and leather armor, etc. should be re-rolled at the referee's discretion. Additionally, it has a ragged and filthy loincloth the size of a tent. Got to have a nice smell attached to that, I would think. What I might do here is, instead of saying re-roll leather and things like that, no, keep them. And then you can use instead, okay, so you have leather armor that was in there. The leather armor has been dissolved, but there's going to be little fasteners, little bits of brass or steel or iron in there. You could have all the little bits. Maybe it's not 100% dissolved. You see little bits of leather. Maybe just the tiniest little bit of a scroll, or just there's a little wrapper or something, right? A ring that maybe the scroll was had a ring that was holding it. And you could add those little details. Or, of course, you re-roll them. Again, I might like some of this listed out in a way, but this one's more harder to do because you have to figure out all those adventurers and their gear. That's kind of something where maybe I might think about what those adventurers have and make some kind of table out of it. But of course, I think, you're trying to keep it, I'm guessing, to about 3 pages kind of for each monster. So you're limited in your space. Fallen Celestial. It's It's kind of cool. I like it. Hound of Tindalos. Was that something from Monty Python? The picture definitely has that Monty Python thing to it. At least in the main, not the details, but maybe just the overall. Lurking Glutton. Ravenous Floating Maws. Oh, someone from the chat. Good day, sir, says Monkey Work. Oops. Hello. Okay, the Lurking Glutton. Let's see what the... Oh, is there a picture for this one? Oops. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way. Oh, look at that. Yoinks. That's a lot of teeth, a really big tongue, and it's big. All right. A Mantid Stitch Golem. Pack hunting undead predators stitched together from various corpses, human and otherwise. Wow. Well, look at that thing. Well, what creatures is it getting those scythe legs from? Definitely gross and creepy. And the art, by the way, art, very cool. Very nice art. Okay, Ooze Lich. All right, I'm going to read the Ooze Lich. That was just, I mean, there are two things that just speak awesome. Liches, oozes. How can you go wrong by combining them into an Ooze Lich? An Ooze Lich is a magic user cursed to undeath as a toxic oozing mass. Yep, this is gold. All right, HD 11. It has 11 hit dice plus 1. Let's see. Monkey Work says, I really like how they put a silhouette of a hero next to the monster to get an idea of size. Yeah, I said this before. And yeah, it's a great thing. Anything that can help utility, right? I'm all about utility. And you can look at that picture, or you can hand that picture out to the adventurers if you want, your party, your players, and they can immediately get an idea of how big it is next to them. So yeah, that's excellent. And they made those silhouettes artistic too. They could have gone with some kind of dummy, a mannequin, but they didn't. They made them interesting, and it seemed like right now the silhouettes kind of have some variance to them, each. So well done. I applaud it. I applaud that effort. A little extra. Okay, I don't really care so much about the box text. It does have some claw attacks. Let's see. It's got an acid. After a successful attack, it sticks to the victim and exudes acid. The acid inflicts more damage. Oh, per round. And destroys cloth, leather, or wood in 1 round. Stone and metal are unaffected. All right, so get your metal on. Fighters to the front. Cling, it can move across walls and ceilings. Non-fire attacks cause the Ooze Lich to divide. Each hit creates a half hit point fragment that does half damage. Each hit creates a half hit point fragment. What does that mean, a half hit point fragment? Maybe they'll say more about it, but at least we know the big point is that even that little tiny, whatever it is, half hit point fragment does half damage, so it will still hurt. Paralysis for 3d6 rounds. It's got magical powers. It can cast darkness and phantasmal force at will, and then animate dead 3 times a day. You need magic or silvered weapons to hurt it. Has regeneration. It can squeeze through holes and cracks. It's got telepathy. Can communicate. Let's see. It's undead. Doesn't make any noise until it attacks. It's immune to stuff that would affect living creatures. It is vulnerable to light. -2 to hit in brightly lit areas. Sunlight will destroy them. An Ooze Lich in direct sunlight must make save versus death every round to be disintegrated. And then I suppose, I don't know if an OSR is there, the sunlight kind of spell, but I imagine that kind of, if they had a spell that mimics sunlight, you could get a similar effect for it. And here we get the picture. So again, I like the silhouette, right? It's a little bit different than the other silhouettes we've seen. It's definitely a creepy ooze-like thing. So it's, now, at least with the picture, it does keep its shape somewhat. It's not completely just a complete ooze. It might have been interesting, and obviously you could do this yourself in your game if the Ooze Lich looked more or less like a regular ooze, and it's just hanging around, but yet it's got, or maybe it's kind of vaguely in the shape of a skull. That would have been interesting, but obviously here's their rendering, and change it. Still, it's very creepy. Let's get the full description here. A foul oozing mass of putrescence, tasty, vaguely resembling a human skeleton. It looks as if most of its body is composed of some sort of congealed, grayish, semi-translucent, ropey sludge. Nice use of the term ropey. Oh, Will in the chat. Welcome, Will. What if it looks like Ivan Ooze from the Power Rangers? Guess what, Will? I have no idea who that is. I didn't watch Power Rangers, so keep that reference to yourself. Where was I? The skull seems to be the most solid part of the whole sickening thing, but upon closer scrutiny, that too is shown to be some sort of coagulated gel. The thing reeks of charnel house and rot. always down with charnel house and rot. The creature is intelligent and capable of communication via telepathy, but likely considers anything it comes across as prey. However, if an enterprising and imaginative individual manages to spark its curiosity, it might be bartered with. Oh, Monkey Works. I'm coming to like this stream. What is the title of this book? This is Creature Feature Corte Numero Uno. And there are 3 of these. All right. The last one. So this is Creature Feature Quarterly number 1. There is a volume 2, or sorry, Quarterly volume 1. There is a volume 2, and there is a volume 3, and I will put the link when I have a chance into the description later, and maybe into the stream, the chat if I get a chance. It is in the last parts of an Indiegogo. So it's currently there, and I have a sample monster from there, or at least maybe more than one. But this is the first one. And if it's up on drive-thru, I will post a link to it. I think it is, but I don't know for sure. I'll have to take a quick look. But that's what it is. And just to recap the features, not only do you have this PDF that's got all the pictures and all the stats and all that, you also get tokens for use in your virtual tabletop of choice and minis you could print out for using in-person games. So get a few things. Get some bang for your buck. So we have the lore. Legends say these creatures are the damned remnants of sorcerers and other such dabblers in the dark arts that made alliances with or somehow ran afoul of particular demonic forces aligned to a rawer, baser form of entropy than most of the demon lords. All right, so that's a little interesting. Oh, he found it. Great. These beings possess many of the same qualities as a standard ooze, pudding, or slime, but are motivated by a much keener and more malign cunning. For they were once mortal flesh and mortal blood themselves. In addition to consuming the flesh of their prey, they also consume its life force. It is supposed that it is for this reason they enjoy toying with their victims. They often lure prey through illusion and other forms of artifice into compromising situations. For example, they might lead a character into a room with a concealed door that slams shut behind them, leaving them in a confined space all alone and at the tender mercies of the Oozlich. So there we go. Oozlich, how it works. The ecology of the Oozlich. These disgusting things are undead, and as such, many mortal necessities and frailties no longer trouble them. But it has been surmised that they do weaken over time if denied flesh. Some argue mere flesh and blood will not sustain them indefinitely, but they must also inflict pain and suffering, and then bask in the miasma of woe. Not unlike, what was it, The Outsider from HBO? Am I spoiling The Outsider? Perhaps. They say these agglomerations of foulness crave misery as flowers do the light of the sun. Very poetic. They can be found at the bottom of spiked pits, waiting to sup on the last breath of an unlucky soul. That's a nice twist to a trap, for sure. But that makes it a whole lot deadlier than your average spike pit, which might be good or bad for you. They can be found slithering through the blood-soaked muck of battlefields. They may even be found in the sewers and latrines of plague-ridden populations. Nothing is beneath them. Well, all right. Let's see. The Seeds of Adventure. Whilst exploring, a member of the party is separated from the group. This will be by the design of an Oozlich. The separation will likely place the party member in a tight, enclosed space, a space that would make drawing a sword or casting spells difficult. Maybe a 5x5 kind of corridor, maybe even something more slimmer. More slimming, tighter, right? Once the character is isolated, the Oozlich will begin to fill the space with its own form, engulfing them. It will whisper into the mind of its victim as its mere presence dissolves their flesh and steals their life. Well, that's definitely something that's, well, A, it's gross. Definitely useful. If you have a situation where your party's split and it makes sense, you could drop an Oozlich on them. Though keeping in mind how powerful this thing is, you might want to make that a fairly rare occurrence. The second seed, a once flourishing but now ruined mining community, is rumored to possess fabulous treasures. The PCs are sent to seek out the laboratory of a wizard and retrieve as much of his research as possible. The client wants the research, but gives the party leave to take whatever else they desire. The PCs are not aware that the wizard in question moved to this isolated area to commune with some foul spirit the mining had unearthed. The wizard has since been transformed into an Oozlich and loosed a plague that devastated the community. It lingers there still and grows hungrier by the day. So that one again is more of a real, right? Was the first one's kind of a random encounter. This is more of a true adventure seed. All right, so you have someone sending you to do something involved in the Oozlich. The one thing is it's a lich, but it doesn't have that kind of phylactery element, so it's not lich-like in that regard. So that's kind of an interesting choice. It has a nice ring to it, Oozlich, but someone on a technical factor might say, well, it's not really a lich because it wasn't a transformation. It was a transformation, but no one that wasn't necessarily sought by the the magic user, and then it doesn't have that kind of phylactery kind of thing. But it's cool. And then we see the loot. Treasure type F. Rerolling anything that might have been destroyed by acid. Most of the loot will be mixed in with bones. There is a 20% of the lair. There is a 20% of the lair containing 1d6 prisoners. 20% chance. Missing word there. 20% chance of the lair containing 1d6 prisoners. In the lair, there is also a 20% chance of finding what appears to be a spellbook composed of thin metal sheets. Arcane formula are acid etched into these metal pages. Additional macabre esoterica may be found as well. So this seems to, it's interesting because they talked about how this is kind of a punishment that maybe a wizard didn't want to transform into the Oozlich, but the spellbook seems to indicate that that someone had to anticipate becoming an Oozlich to then create a metal version of the spellbook that they could keep once they became an acidic ooze, or that post-transformation, maybe they're suggesting that the Oozlich was able to create a metal spellbook and then use its own, write with its finger and acid etch. Either way, interesting. A protocol imp. I'm just going to speed through some of these. Well, okay. So here in this case, it's smaller, right? So the the average medium creature is then taller than the creature here. I don't know if I would have. Here they swap sides. I think I might have kept everything on the same side, but I like it. Let's see. We get a star tyrant. I like that it's got kind of tentacle legs. Tatterdamelion, another lich. Scarecrow-like effigy of a wizard, writhing and twisting like a sheet in the wind. Well, that's very descriptive. It can move, so I guess it's not. All right. Definitely looks gross in sort of a haunted scarecrow kind of way. Let's see. We got some more stuff. Thaumagrue. A Thaumagrue, an immense, limence? Maybe that's a typo. Immense, caterpillar-like. Is limence a word? I'm assuming it's not a word in the typo for immense, caterpillar-like demons obsessed with the accumulation of arcane knowledge and power. Let's take a look at the picture. Is it truly immense? Yes, it is immense. And if limence is a word, perhaps it's also limence. But it's at least immense. Twist Brute. A wall of densely muscled homicidal rage. All right. Whoa. That's an arm meant for destroying. Yeah, boy, you could impale a whole party on that one arm. Unseelie Psychopomp. Some kind of darkling fae that herald death and the creeping eldritch corruption of the natural world. Yep. And right, so they're pretty small, but they got large hands. You know what they say about Dark Fae with large hands, don't you? Yeah, I don't know either. A war engine. Oh, cool. Kind of reminds me of the Destroyer. Is that what it is? Whatever the thing from Thor, right? Marvel. Was it a Destroyer? I don't know. I think it was called the Destroyer. It was cool, and this is cool too. And then we have some appendix. And then we got OGL stuff. All right. Just scrolling back all the way to the top. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go back to the picture. It does have a cover. I'm not sure why the cover is separate. Maybe it's just because this cover is meant to be for its landscape instead of, I don't know. And that's that Devour, right? Well, what do I think about this one? Another thumbs up. The monsters all seem very interesting. All twists on things that you might find, but it has a different vibe to it. The art is all great. And like I said, I had said at first that I wasn't sure if I was wondering why they didn't put the pictures with the text to give it more of a flow and just save space. But obviously the reason is, I think, so that you can hold up those renderings along with the little silhouettes so they can see the size, so they can get the visual of the monster, but also immediately see kind of how big they are in case there are questions of if you say large or huge or whatever. You can say, no, it really is about this big. Look at, you decide. The artwork, as I said, is great. I think the information they give is good. I think I mentioned kind of at the beginning when I was sort of going through the first kind of the way it's laid out. I might have laid things out a little bit differently. I would prefer more kind of bullets and numbers, things that I can make it easier for me to roll dice on. I might have separated out the seeds, and some of them seem more like a random encounter idea, and some of them seem more true adventure seeds, and maybe giving those out, and maybe even one or two more of them. I know they had a lot of space that they're leaving. They're kind of leaving behind some space, and I might kind of either move things together, or if you could think of some more things, hey, put in that, give me some stuff in that space, those spaces to kind of flesh it out. But all the information is there. I like the way they, they kind of organize it in general. Like I said, I might have preferred a different layout just for ease of use, just the way I like to use things. But the overall layout is good. There is no intro or anything, which I might have had an intro letting me know kind of how everything is working and some of the things. I mean, it's fairly easy to tell. It's not arcane or anything, but it's just one of those kind of, it's nice as a human just to have a little something here. Let me tell you a little bit about this book. And instead it goes right in from the table of contents right into the monsters, which is obviously fun, is great for when you're using it just as a reference, but just, you don't know whoever is going to be in front of this thing. So to the extent that you can help somebody who might be a first-time reader and figure things out, it's good. But overall, I really liked it. There's a lot of good stuff in here. I can see myself using a lot of these beasts. I think they don't necessarily cover the entire gamut of different kinds of monsters, but that's okay. I don't feel like you have to have, oh, one of this, one of that, whatever. They're all interesting and weird and useful for different things. Like I said, it's very good. Now there's 3 of these. The author was kind enough to send me the 2, and then I will just do a quick look at the 3rd one, which is just a sample. I have not looked at it, so I don't even know how many are here, but we'll just give it a quick peek just to give you an idea. It's on Indiegogo right now. I think it's the last day or 2 or 3. So either grab it that route. I don't know if there's any kind of, if the pricing is different from Indiegogo to whatever it will be when it ends up somewhere else. But here we go. We'll preview booklet. Right. So this one, no separate file for the cover. Maybe because it's a preview, or I don't know if you just changed the style. And here we go. So this is one obviously specifically created as a preview. So we get some preview text. Here are the possible monsters that backers get to choose from for Volume 3. Only 16 will make it into the book. There's a link to the Indiegogo. There are some polls. I don't know if these polls are still running. There were too many options, so I had to divide them across 2 posts. Well, so here we get some little capsules. So they're not all going to be in the book, but we get a little sampler. The Untap, like a cool scorpion-like abomination. The Adka, the Adorai, an Aradan, an Orhai, the Barkida. I'm not gonna read all these just because I gotta stop and get a drink, number one. My drink ran out, but you know, the Bolak that was on the cover, Chirper. I suppose there's one thing you could say is they're all kind of humanoid for the most part, and maybe some more variations in the type of monsters. But man, there's so many of them. Here are some different ones, right? There we get a bird. That's cool. Oh, the Makari, kind of a drow-looking thing. Atavistic mutant spawn of a certain demonic spider queen, hint, hint, worshipped by some subterranean elves, right? A Shamretta, that's very cool looking. What was that one? A Shadraz Ghoul. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff in here. The Her. I'm a man of my Her. So just get some sample stats. I'm not going to read it, but just get a bigger picture of what that one looks like. And then, so I didn't show the paper minis before, but here's, you can print these out. And then obviously you have to do some cutouts, and then you just get that. So look at that. Bum, 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 bum. So that's some of these. Some selection of these will be in volume 3, which again is in the dying throes as I record this. Maybe by the time you see it, it's already done. I will try to find links and post those in there. Cool stuff, right? I think if you liked, if you just, obviously you're in the stream where I just went over the first one. I feel like that first one I went through in more detail was your cup of Joe, then that will probably also be your cup of Joe. More of that kind of stuff is good. You can always use more, right? Always use more. There you have more. So I have a few more things on my queue, but I feel like I'm at 2 hours, and I feel like I kind of need a break. So I might do one more, and then I'll check out for a spell, and then potentially come back. I usually don't get these long times to stream unless it's the middle of the night or something, but my wife and daughter are again away, so I'm trying to make hay while the sun shines. But I should go out too, because, I mean, literally the sun is shining, and it's a beautiful fall day. I haven't eaten any lunch. It's 3 o'clock. I shall have to take a break of some kind, but this one was part of and I will flip to, this was part of a bundle that I think was on Itch. I believe it was all female authors, and there was a whole list of them. I think I saw a post of it just a while back. I'm a little bit late to this one, so apologies to Steffie de Vaan. So I reached out to I think the organizer, who might not have been Steffie, might have been someone else, about, hey, could I use some of these because they look really cool? And they said, hey, pick a couple of them, and they gave me the list. And I'm a big Alice in Wonderland fan, so I naturally, when I saw this, swooped down into it. So this one's a little bit different. I believe it's its own game system. It is not OSR specifically. It is not D&D like. Obviously, it's something a little bit different. I remember I looked at this a long time ago, but I try not to look at things too much when I'm going to do these videos on them, because I want you to be getting my authentic kind of first look thing. So I don't want to preview it. I'm not previewing these and kind of coming up with my either likes, dislikes, or my feelings on it. They're not scripted, right? And I want to kind of keep that fresh feel. I'm opening this book for the first time, so I did that. But I believe one thing that this book has is it uses, as a mechanic, playing cards. So that's something that we'll look forward to delving into, but let's take a look. So some contents, right? This is not a big book, which is great. What we need to play, so we need 3 to 6 players. Use as a GM. You can use as a one-shot or an ongoing campaign. So we need 2 decks of playing cards that I don't have in front of me, so we're just going to have to just read through it and pretend, use our mind's eye to pretend that we're holding on to some decks of cards. As the food, always good to role play with cakes and sugary treats. Tweets? Yeah, sugary treats and a pot of perfectly steeped tea, right? We want to play this Mad Hatter tea party style. You got to have tea, some treacle, a dormouse if you got it. And then, of course, if you can play this at an outdoor tea party, it's perfect. And, of course, not of course, but it does give you some content warnings, some sort of substance abuse and child abduction. Hopefully the substance is tea and not cocaine or late 19th century, right? Cocaine wasn't a thing yet, but there was definitely snuff, opium. I'm not saying that there are things are in there. I'm just trying to think about what kind of substance abuse might be here. Okay, Return to Wonderland. Return to Wonderland takes Alice back from 1879's London to Wonderland. Excuse me. Now a dark and terrible place under tyrant rule. Somewhat like the Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland movies, which I don't recommend. They are bad. But that's the kind of vibe we get here. Players take on the role of Alice and such companions as the Cheshire Cat or White Knight. The GM chooses from any of the tyrants collected, queens and Jabberwockies alike, and creates their own story around that. Our setting draws inspiration from both Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. I'm glad they mentioned that because a lot of things that people associate from Alice in Wonderland were actually in Through the Looking Glass. I think specifically, the Jabberwock for one, and also I believe Tweedledum and Tweedledee are actually in Through the Looking Glass. But my mind may be getting things switched. From both books, because we're greedy, we want all the queens, the cat, the rabbit, and the Jabberwocky. We listed the literary origin of each character and location so you can separate them into 2 different campaigns if you desire. Lewis never specified if the land under the rabbit hole and the land behind the mirror are separate places or the same. For our purpose, Mirrorland and Wonderland border on each other, but a large wall guarded by Humpty Dumpty separates them. It might be Humpty Dumpty that's in the Looking Glass again. I should read those again. My memory is getting bad. Different portals open to Wonderland and Mirrorland respectively, and combined we call them the lands, capital L. Return to Wonderland provides fully functioning mechanics, 6 companions, and 6 tyrants to choose from, as well as advice on running the game across 3 different worlds. The Lewis Carroll's books or your favorite adaptation of them, not the Tim Burton movies, help to craft your own campaign. The original books are excellent for inspiration, and we also recommend American McGee's Alice and the 2009 sci-fi miniseries Alice, even if both are set in the modern world rather than 1879. There's also good, I think it was on NBC, it was on network TV, but I think back in the early 90s or maybe even late 80s, I thought was pretty good as far as being more, they're never 100% accurate to the books, but much better than I have a soft spot for the Disney movie, but it takes a lot of liberties. And then some of the other ones take liberties. That one I thought did a fairly good job. There's also one that's like British from the 1980s, and it stars, I forget her name, who was in the Underworld movies and other stuff. Her, I guess, she's a teenager. She must have been, and she's Alice. I'm glad they did not list the Tim Burton movies. So yeah, don't do that. There's some box text here. It's in kind of a scribbly font. Let me see if I can read this. Even with my glasses, it doesn't seem quite clear. My story didn't end the way you heard it. I never defeated the Queen of Hearts. I didn't reach the end of the chessboard. Instead, my friends and I fled to the world of mortals with our bodies scarred and minds broken. We abandoned Wonderland to bleed at the hands of a terrible tyrant. No more. We sit in the dark of our London apartment as I blow out the candles on the birthday cake I baked myself. The cat hasn't spoken since we arrived in the mortal world. The rabbit is lost in his clocks. We're shadows of ourselves, and I proclaim no more. It is time we return to Wonderland. Very nice little box text. Nice flavor. Definitely gives that feeling, right? This is darker. We didn't win. We fled, scarred and minds broken. But like those kids in the Jumanji movie, the original one that I just watched this morning, right? They gotta pick the dice back up. Or in this case, the playing cards. Go back in. All right. Alice's World. Our companions live in London in 1879 CE, 14 years after Alice's first adventures in Wonderland. The companions hope to shake the tyrant's agents in the largest and most diverse city in the Western world. Our story opens in their dingy apartment with wind blowing through broken windows and rent overdue. Excuse me. Alice is the only human companion, hails from the mortal world. As the only human companion, hails from the mortal world. But just as she can move between the lands and mortal world, so can creatures from the lands come to our world. They take a human seeming if they desire, blending in near seamlessly, but they are absolutely real. Alice is not imagining anything. London. The mortal world and Mirrorland are closely intertwined, even if the tyrant takes no active interest in it. Whichever tyrant you choose should make their presence felt in the city's landscape. If Walrus and Carpenter rule, oh, run, oysters, run. London's smog is even thicker than usual to create a perpetual noxious green fog. If the White Queen sits on the throne, the city is neat and polished to the point of becoming lifeless. Let's see. Industrialism. Alice's world has a tyrant all of its own in the form of industrialism and greed. Laborers increasingly become a resource to exploit and discard. Any loyalty from factory owners to their workforce rapidly dwindling. Cities fill to bursting, and the working poor huddle together in slum buildings. The Thames runs green with sludge and sewage. We get some nice character of the mortal world in which we'll start ourselves, but there's more. Cosmopolitan. London in the 19th century is the largest city and port of the Western world and capital to the Grand British Empire. The city sees a sizable Jewish and Asian, particularly Chinese, population, as well as refugees from rural London and Ireland fleeing starvation. These are the circles the companions move in, creating a world where, even in 1879's London, genderqueer and people of color are welcome. All right, so that's a nice note. Right, I know this is one of those things I'm going to go on a tiny little tangent. I see people get mad on the BBC and different things for when they will rework a Shakespeare, and they'll put it in a historical, keep it in historical context, but they'll modernize the cast so you might have people of different ethnicities, and in roles that they will say, oh, you can't have Richard III can't be black or a woman or an Asian or whatever. And I always think, like, one, great actors are great actors, and why should these people be denied the chance at starring in this and being a part of this cast? And we denied their performance because of where they were born or what their outer appearance says about where they're from. But this is another way of doing it, which is saying that, look, there are tons of different ethnicities around London, and we're just going to say whether it's strictly true. Obviously, it was true in the sense that, yes, there were all kinds of ethnicities in London in 1879, but we're not going to worry about if there were some kind of cultural, mores that, if you were Asian, you couldn't be here, or if you had to be in hiding if you were queer, right? We're just saying, look, for the purposes of this, you can be what you want to be, whoever you want to be. It totally works in this melting pot. We're going to, in some ways, imagine a kinder, a broader, more cosmopolitan version of Victorian London, and I'm all down with that. Deviation. Factory goods replace handcrafts. Every machine stitched cloth the same. The companions find beauty in idiosyncrasy and prefer to patron tea shops where no two cups or biscuits are alike. Nor do they submit to the social norms of 1879 as Sheep supports the suffragist cause while Alice visits illegal queer parties where absinthe flows liberally. Again, just building upon that, right? This is all about acceptance and diversity. This is not about how can we try to simulate the uptight, Victorian, cultural stereotypes. Poverty. None of the companions, save possibly White Rabbit, has the discipline for holding down a steady job, which requires clocking in and out at set times. Rent is late again. They've been living on stale bread, and Alice's hand-me-downs are literally falling apart despite Sheep's best efforts at repair. Alice's sister Eliza visits occasionally, and she, still quite affluent, can pitch in, though she stopped giving cash once she realized it only went to opium and absinthe, and her patience with Alice's strange life is rapidly dwindling. Okay, so we do have opium addiction and potentially alcoholism, so the warnings, we now know a little bit what they were talking about. Portals. Gates allowed the companions to flee the lands when the tyrant ascended to power, but they're also how the tyrant sent their agents to hunt them. The companions know which mushrooms transport them to Wonderland and have a contact who sells them. Alice can see Wonderland in absinthe dreams, even if she has not yet learned how to use the liquor as a portal. Meanwhile, some mirror surfaces open into Mirrorland, but others don't, and the companions can't discern between them. To be on the safe side, they cleared their apartment of all mirrors and smeared the windows with soot. Traversing through a mirror renders the traveler temporarily invisible. All right. So some more things about maybe how they move back or forth. And even though we haven't gotten the full details yet, we have hints about the effects of absinthe and the dreams allow some things. We know about mirrors. They don't always, but they might sometimes move you into Mirrorland. And then we know we have the thing about mushrooms, where right in the middle, in the original tales, mushrooms helped her grow larger and smaller. In this case, they might still do that, but there's this added effect, at least in the mortal world or the outer world, that the mushrooms can be used to take you to Wonderland. And here we go. Let's get a closer look at Wonderland. Wonderland is a strange and whimsical place. It's closest to the mortal world, which is why mushrooms make more reliable portals than mirrors. Wonderland is full of objects that make one shrink, drink me potions, the white rabbit's fan, which now lies discarded in Wonderland, and the right side of Caterpillar's mushroom, or grow, Lizard Bill's cakes, and the left side of Caterpillar's mushroom. The companions, thank you. The companions need these to just move around. Even the white rabbit needed his fan to fit through the garden door. Creatures in Wonderland, be they animals or living cards, rarely make sense. They don't speak in riddles, but rather view reality differently than humans. They're also self-centered creatures, rarely stopping to consider what others need or want. Even among friends and allies, the companions should never be quite at ease. All right, so this is some important information, just some general things about the place, and then about the inhabitants of the place. Linguistics take the place of the laws of physics in Wonderland. The Hatter killed time singing and became stuck at tea time until Alice arrived. This gives both the GM and players wide leeway to set up, resolve problems in Wonderland. So they're seemingly implying that you can puns, plays on words, metaphors, similes are going to set the laws of reality, right? If you are singing to kill time, perhaps you're singing like the Mad Hatter actually kills time, and so you're stuck at a certain time until something pushes you out of it. And yeah, you could have a lot of fun coming up with all kinds of crazy plays on words, and then those things actually become the fabric of the reality. I'll definitely be curious to see how the mechanics help resolve these, or at least give you the tools to resolve these sorts of situations. Terrible tyrants from Wonderland. Caterpillar, Queen of Hearts. It looks like we're going to get in some places within Wonderland. White Rabbit's home. The caucus, consisting of a dodo, eaglet, duck, and Lori, have taken residence in the rabbit's former home. The caucus dismissed the mouse, once a member, for lacking feathers. The rabbit's former servants, Pat, Bill the Lizard, and Marianne, have taken employment elsewhere. The GM should tailor this to give the companions possible and untrustworthy eyes and ears within the tyrant's domain. The Caterpillar's Forest. The forest stands as forests are wont to do, as does the caterpillar's mushroom. If the caterpillar rules Wonderland, the forest becomes his near impenetrable base of operations. If not, the creature is as enigmatic as ever, though he is willing to aid the companions. The GM should ensure the caterpillar is more than just a convenient ally, though. The creature has plans, some wholly nefarious. I suppose it'll be up to us to say what these plans are. The Duchess's palace. It either lies in ruins or sits under siege if the Queen of Hearts rules. In both cases, the Duchess may still reside within, along with her cook and child, who is sometimes a pig. The Duchess quite likes Alice, though she resents the Cheshire Cat for leaving her employ, and could make a valuable ally. On the far end of the palace, reachable only by traversing the length of the palace, lies Mirrorland. The same frog footman handles both the Wonderland and Mirrorland doors concurrently. The Queen of Hearts garden and palace. If the Queen of Hearts rules Wonderland, she extends her garden to most everywhere. Flowers all across Wonderland are painted red and adorned with tiny spikes to mimic roses, and all card servants now bear the heart symbol. If she does not rule, both garden and palace lie in ruins, but given the Queen's former might, are still worth exploring for strange treasure. And then Turtle Island. The Mock Turtle's beach lies at the far reaches of Wonderland, near Mirrorland. The Griffin and Mock Turtle both live here, hiding on a rocky island in the ocean. The Mock Turtle's shell is cracked, and the Griffin broke a wing in their flight. This renders the flying beast unable to escape and makes the pair prisoners as much as refugees unless healed. Well, there's a little hint. All right, so I'm going to be a little bit more, just so we've got, these are basically all the main, if you remember, the main kind of locations that were in the Alice in Wonderland books, and here they are. I'm going to go in less detail through Mirrorland, so we have an idea of what kind of information we're getting, and I don't need to go through and just read out everything. But I'm going to imagine that the same as we had these same main locations from the books that were in Wonderland, we're going to have the same kind of things for Mirrorland. I will read the overall description of Mirrorland because I think that's more important than the individual locations. Mirrorland is a world of reversal. Both the red and white queen live backwards through time. Walking away from something takes you towards it, and handing out cake comes before cutting it. The GM can use this to set up the story, so working to unseat the tyrant actually raises them to the throne without threading into everything you did was for naught territory. Once the companions discover this inverted causality, they should have a chance to reverse it by working to secure the throne for the tyrant, right? So there's this reversals. And in the books, this whole thing where the people are moving backwards. In this case, if you try to pull away, you're going to move towards it. And we can use that in a kind of a plot sense that the more you try to undo something, you're really kind of setting it up. But then if you try to set it up, you're really undoing it, right? So it's a bit of a brain bender, but it obviously can be done in a fun way. And that gives you some really interesting, different narrative story opportunities for playing in Maryland. So again, I'm just probably going to read just the titles of the places because we've already gotten kind of a sense of what they're like. Here we have this a little bit more on the generally. Transmutation magic is powerful in Maryland, and objects and creatures often change into others simply by naming or using them thus. To inhabitants of Maryland, this comes naturally. The companions have to work harder to dip into this magic, save the sheep who was born from a transmutation of the White Queen herself. Maryland is laid out like a chessboard, though it's hard to tell from the ground. Brooks, hedges, and forest paths divide the board squares, and crossing one renders the companions in the new scene. This crossing is a dizzying affair, taking travelers to a completely new landscape and even causing them to forget their names. The GM can waive this if the companions travel in groups, as one of them is likely to remember and remind the others. If a companion crosses into a new square on their own, though, draw the top card of the GM deck. The companion forgets their name on a diamond's face card and loses all memory of their companions if the card is an ace. So we haven't seen yet the mechanics of the playing cards, but they're going to be there. Well, we're supposed to have two decks, and presumably one deck is going to be this GM's deck. Draw the top card. If it's a diamonds, something happens. If it's an ace, something else happens, or potentially it could be an ace of diamonds, and then both things happen on a rare occasion. So that we've given a little bit of how the mechanics work without having gone through all of it. And the terrible tyrants from Maryland, the Jabberwocky, the Red Queen, the Walrus and the Carpenter, and the White Queen. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of go through these. I'm not going to read all the descriptions. I'm just going to go through the names. We have Alice's Cottage is one location, Garden of Talking Flowers, the Railway, the Towering Forest, Humpty's Wall, the Walrus Beach, and that's it for Maryland. And again, these are all from the books. And if you go to play this, you can read in those in more detail and get a little bit more. But now I'm going to move on to mechanics, which I'm really interested into because, like I said, this does not use dice. As far as I know, it uses playing cards. So let's see how it does this. Return to Wonderland uses a standard deck of cards as a resolution system. Every suit represents a way to create or solve an obstacle for GMs and players respectively. Each character has a predetermined hand size of 3 and a favorite suit listed under companions. The GM and the collective players group draw from separate card decks. Player cards go into a discard pile, which is shuffled and made into a new deck when the last card is drawn. Hearts is the suit of spirit. It represents friendship and enmity, resolve, and fatalism. Hearts is an obstacle to a person. Hearts, I think typo here. Hearts is an obstacle to a person whose alliance is murky or a gloomy. Hearts as an, sorry, my mistake. Not a typo, just me not reading it correctly. Not hearts is an obstacle, but hearts as an obstacle is a person whose alliance is murky or a gloomy forest. Caterpillar is a character of Hearts. Diamonds is the suit of mind. It represents both immense cleverness and foolishness. Riddles and logic puzzles are of the mind. Alice is a character of Diamonds. Clubs is the suit of Convey. It's impressing enemies with your cleverness, rallying your companions with a speech, or telling undetectable lies. The Cheshire Cat is a character of Clubs, but it's interesting that they have cleverness and diamonds and clubs, but one is more the mental aspect of cleverness, and one is maybe having just a clever speech, right? Being able to turn phrase and stuff to be impressive to somebody listening to you, but not necessarily actually impressive. At least that's the feel that I'm getting. Spades is the suit of absurdity, which you need to survive the lands. Absurdness often represents as luck, such as finding just the right potion to shrink or grow. Playing croquet with hedgehogs and flamingos is also absurd. The Hatter is a character of Spades. At the start of the game, players draw their starting hand of 3 cards. Crafting a challenge. All right, step 1, crafting a challenge. The DM determines how tough a challenge is and draws that many cards. 1 or 2 cards less than the number of players is easy. Cards equal to the number of players is average, and 1 or 2 more than the number of players is hard. I like that because it scales. Got 2 players, got 3 players. You know exactly kind of how the game is going. You can easily fit the thing in here. We'll say Will in the chat. Crossing squares is a big part of what made the fonts cool. Come on, Will. Do better, Will. You're going to be in my comments. Going to be in my chat. You got to really bring it. Bring it. All right, so he has the idea of a challenge. We're going to look at the cards. I'm going to mentally, as the GM, mentally crafting into the challenge, but I don't know what the challenge is, but I'm going to jot down a few notes to help them keep track. Then I'm going to lay them face down on the table in the order of their choosing. All right, so I guess crafting them means I'm putting them in some kind of order, right? Something, is that what it means? I might make a few notes, and I'm going to lay them face down on the table in an order that I choose. Just trying to think this out as I go. Okay, a challenge is the sport of the cards. That's what I just did. It represents something the companions want to accomplish, such as getting into the Queen of Hearts party. Individual cards in that spread represent obstacles to the challenge, such as a locked gate, a daunting maze, nosy lacquery, or other party guests. The suit determines the nature of the challenge and the number of the difficulty. 2 of spades is an easy absurdity challenge, and ace of spades is a hard one. Okay, so that makes some sense. So I'm going to have a challenge in mind. Now I'm going to think about what obstacles that challenge represents, and then I'm going to look and take the suits of the cards and the numbers on the cards to create the kind of challenge and whatever. So if I'm going to use the earlier example, they need to get to a place, but I know that part of that's going to be playing croquet with the flamingos. That's going to be absurdity, and I'll create a number that I feel like matches that challenge I want for that, and that's going to put it down. If another one is having to, what's another one? Maybe having to deal with the caterpillar. I might have that one be clubs, maybe for, I have to go back and look. What was clubs? Clubs convey, because I think you're kind of verbally jousting. I think it might be convey, or it could be cleverness, which what is diamonds, I think, right? So you're going to set those up. And if it's a lot, obviously, if there's a lot of obstacles, that makes it harder. There's a few, it makes it easier. So that's how you create a challenge. Challenges keep the game moving. Players don't have to break an objective down into 1, climb the castle wall, 2, evade the guards, 3, hide until the red queen arrives, but rather state their intention of ambushing the red queen and accomplish it in 1 challenge. If the GM or players want to do a quick test for something, the GM draws the top card of their deck and plays it as a lone obstacle. So this is the one part that I'm interested in. So is it if I'm saying I as the GM, is the GM creating the challenge and they're doing it, or are they creating the challenge? Maybe it could work both ways. This is where I would love an example of play, but maybe one's coming at the end, hopefully, because this is a really interesting way of doing it. It's an interesting mechanic, but it's also, in the fact it's interesting and different, means that I could use some more. Or examples would be helpful in trying to help me grok everything that's happening. Okay, we're at step 2, overcoming obstacles. The GM turns over the first card in the challenge. Players whose companions are present for the scene lay cards face down to meet this obstacle. They may play as many cards matching the obstacle suit as they like, and 1 card of their favorite suit as trump card, counting as a match regardless of suit in the entire challenge. To overcome an obstacle, they need to match or beat its value, and the face cards have a numeric value of, okay, Jack is 11, King is 12, Queen 13, and Ace is 15. And I think we may have had some turnover in the chat. I am covering, the name of it is Return to Wonderland. It is an Alice in Wonderland themed role-playing game that uses cards as a mechanic. I've gone over some of the background about stuff, and now I'm going over the mechanics, how to use the deck of cards. We're getting, okay, looks like, okay, well, I thought we were getting to examples. I guess they are examples of a sentence. Players can't tell each other which cards they're laying down, though they can describe what they're doing in a manner that hints. Don't say, I got this 1, I have a 7 of spades. You don't say, the white rabbit leaps forward mightily, and he's clearly going to jump on the new path, onto the new path easily. What you do say is, the white rabbit hops forward and uses his watch to perfectly time a jump onto the new path. So you want to be, be in the fiction, right? The GM decides if players cross from teasing descriptions to basically telling each other what cards they've laid down. If it turns into a recurring problem, they may ask the offending player to discard that card and play a new one. Away with that card. The Joker. Remove the Joker cards from the GM deck, as the wild, unpredictable luck it represents is, even in the lands, reserved for the companions. The companion deck keeps its 2 Joker cards. That's nice. The Joker card from the companion's deck, played face down as normal, beats any obstacle card. Alternatively, a player can play it face up to remove the obstacle as if it were never there. The benefit of the former is that companions reap any additional rewards from beating the obstacle. If the companions never encounter the Queen of Spades, they can't gain her as ally. The benefit of the latter is that the other players don't spend their cards on a challenge that is already beaten, as they don't know their ally played a Joker card. Aha. So there you go. There's a little balance there, right? For whether you should, if you have that Joker, play it face up or face down. Then we resolve. The GM turns the players' cards over and tallies them when all players are done placing them. If the companions overcame an obstacle, the player who put down the highest card narrates the outcome with consent of the other players. Steps 2 and 3 then repeat. The GM turns over an obstacle card, the players play their cards face down, and the GM turns them over to tally. If the companions did not overcome the obstacle, the companions fail the obstacle, and the GM narrates what happens. The players can choose to end the challenge or to keep going at that point. All right, and now we're going to get an example of play, which I'm thankful for. Thank you for including examples. Too often, I find there are no examples, and they really are helpful. And not having them is the opposite of helpful. The group tries to gain access to the Queen of Hearts feast. Okay, so the first part is, so it looks like that maybe the group is saying what they're going to do, and then the GM then draws 4 cards, and this is setting kind of the overall difficulty. And then the GM orders them into some kind of challenge, and then challenge proceeds like this. Flips over the first card. It's a diamonds 7. The gate to the garden maze is locked, and the doorknob offers them a riddle. If the GM is good at riddles, or keeps a bunch of them at hand, this is Wonderland after all, they can accompany this with an actual riddle. Result is the companions overcome this obstacle. Alice's player laid down the highest card, and after asking the Cheshire Cat's player, they narrate that the cat answered the riddle so deftly that the gate just swings open with a gape with awe. So we got this diamonds. And I guess at that point you did the GM, or maybe the players decide that that's the gate, or I don't know, maybe it's me as the GM. I decided it was the gate. And then again, they played it out, right? Diamonds was all about cleverness. So they win. The highest player, the player who played the highest card is Alice. The Alice player, they decide to talk to the Cheshire player and say, hey, you obviously very clever. Maybe you came up with it. And then they narrate forward. And the next challenge, 2 of spades. I don't know why I say spades 2 instead of just saying 2 of spades. Maybe it's, I don't know. But anyway, we know what they mean. Spades 2. The path in the Queen's Rose Garden maze continually move, and the companions see a possible shortcut if they're quick enough. Result: the companions overcome this obstacle too. White Rabbit easily jumps onto the new path and distracts the roses while the other companions follow. Okay. Clubs. So they didn't get into which cards they played, but we can imagine. Clubs 6. A lackey approaches to ask for their invitation. Is that how you spell lackey? That looks more like lackey, like a lacquer. And I think of lackey like something like a, I don't know, I think of a mob boss or somebody, they're lackey. I think it's spelled Lackey. But again, it might be a British. I think I mentioned before, maybe British versus American English. I hope that's the gist of it. Otherwise, I have no idea what this thing is. But in any result, the companions fail this particular challenge, but decide to keep going anyway. They're only 1 card away from their goal. The lackey doesn't believe they just lost their invitation on the way and sets out to fetch cards. Okay, so this will be interesting because now they fail the challenge, and I feel like there's an added complication, but I'm curious how this mechanically fits in. So the last one, spades, Queen of Spades. A face card should represent both a grave threat and opportunity. Since we're at a feast run by the Queen of Hearts, let's make this one the actual Queen of Spades. But what does she want? Result: Good thing that almost everyone was able to save their spades cards. The companions overcome this obstacle. The Queen of Clubs hates the Queen of Hearts, who is mean and condescending to her. She encourages them to visit her castle in a future adventure to discuss an alliance. For now, she runs interference with the lackey returning with the guards. Okay, so they played the negative consequence of that into the victory. I'm curious if there might have been another thing you might have been able to do, which is maybe add a card or do something. It feels like if you fail a challenge, there should be some consequence. In this case, there really wasn't one because they failed it and then made the next one, and then that made that failure go away. But this is also the it was the second to last and the penultimate and the ultimate encounter. So you could fade it into the next. If this is a continuing campaign, maybe that guards, they play into what comes afterwards. So there's still a way to make it work somehow. But I might have, just as a demonstration, maybe put that complication earlier just so we could see how it plays out. But maybe the intention is that they're just able to keep going. I don't know. Or obviously it's up to you as a GM how you want to handle it. The companions have made it to the feast, but must dodge those guards from now on. The GM can represent this by adding an extra card to the next challenge. Okay, well, there's the answer to my question. But it would have been nice to have this in the example of play. Note that the GM should narrate failure based on the value of the missed obstacles and the total number of missed obstacles. Had the players chosen to end the challenge after failing the lackey obstacle, the lackey would have escorted them off the grounds. Alternatively, if after continuing they also failed the Queen of Spades obstacle, they might have been clapped in chains and locked in the dungeons. Okay, so you can roll those consequences forward and play with it. But I might have liked, again, I might have liked it to have more complete example play and maybe integrating those things so we can see how it happens. So maybe having something, either a couple of examples with some different failures and successes so we can see how they play off each other, but it's good to know. Step 4, after the challenge. Players draw cards to refill their hand size. The exception to this is the quick challenge consisting of one solo obstacle card, as small things wear the characters down over time and the player doesn't refill their hand. In that case, though, they draw back to their normal hand after a full challenge. If a player didn't play any of the cards in their hand on challenge, they may discard the whole hand and draw 3 new cards. Here we have an optional rule. Luck in the land swings back and forth. You grow and then you shrink. If the players beat the previous challenge, the GM orders the next challenge normally. However, if the companions failed the challenge, the GM lays down the obstacles in the order they drew them. Okay. I'm not sure what that means, but it's an optional rule. But I don't know what that means. If the companions beat the previous challenge, the next challenge comes up as normal. However, if they failed, lays down the obstacles in the order that maybe they just flip. I don't know. Okay. I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but maybe the next time I'm drawing, instead of ordering the way I want to, I just lay them down. But I don't know if that's better or worse for the players, actually. It's just random, which may be good, maybe bad. All right, so let's take a look at these companions. We created our favorite characters as pre-mades on the following pages, but you can make your own. Character creation is simple. Take your favorite character and imagine them after 14 years trapped, hunted, and on the run in the mortal world. That's easy enough. Then mechanically, every companion gets 2 favorite suits to choose one from and an always-on trick that facilitates exploring the lands. Non-human companions can shift into a human form if they choose while in the mortal world. You should change their ethnicity and gender to suit you. Great. Empty character to located. Okay, at the end. All right, let's see some of these. So we have Alice. Alice doesn't dream anymore. She barely even sleeps. She lives on opioids and sees the tyrant's bounty hunters at every corner. She just got fired from her last job as a serving girl for being continually late. Her older sister, Elsie, checks in occasionally, a loving but dismayed presence in Alice's life. And her cat, Dinah, ran away long ago. Suit, she can choose the hearts, spirit, or diamond's mind. And then her trick is, once per game, Alice's player may ask the GM for a convenient growing mushroom, the best path out of here, or a clue to the current mystery. In game terms, they may discard any one obstacle card at will. With the GM's permission, they may even discard multiple obstacle cards within one challenge or the entire challenge. GM's permission, so you don't have to get that, but there you go. That's their one trick. And I'm just going to kind of breeze through the rest of them, but we get the idea here, right? They're can choose their suits, and I imagine if you have your group of companions, you'd want to cover all the bases. And then you get one trick. I mean, that's a pretty powerful trick, but you only get it once per game. Cheshire Cat, the Hatter, the Sheep, the White Knight, the White Rabbit, and then we have the Terrible Tyrants, who rose to rule the lands after Alice fled. What became of the lands under their sway, and which agents do they stand after the companions now? Here are our pre-made favorites. Caterpillar. Caterpillar's agents are heroin dealers, opium den owners, and addicts alike. This is in Alice's world. In Wonderland, it's almost everybody, as the hookah smoke brings people under the caterpillar sway. Very thematic with the caterpillar. Enemy, Bow Wow and the Flowers. The deck, when the companions fail a Hart's obstacle as part of a full challenge, but not as a quick challenge. In Wonderland, one of them, the players decide which, falls under the hookah's influence. Caterpillar can see and hear their senses. He's often busy, though, and the GM should draw the top card of their deck, which they needn't show the players, whenever the companions discuss something sensitive. Hearts means Caterpillar is listening in. I like that. And then, again, I'm going to breeze through these, but we get a sense of what these villains are. But it's very cool. I'm digging this. Jabberwocky, we have the Queen of Hearts, the Red Queen, Walrus and the Carpenter. Oh, wait a minute. Who their enemy is? The Eldest Oyster. Nice. The White Queen. And there we have some blanks. And that is it. So this is a great, right? A great, quick. I like the card resolution system. I think I probably have to maybe play out a couple of turns, I feel like, to get the sense of it a little bit better. But I really dig that. I mean, this seems like a great story game. I could see playing this with my daughter. I have a 6.5-year-old daughter, and I feel like we could really get into playing this, even with just her and me. You know, using the cards. It's very easy and quick. I like the fact that your fail states are very narrative driven, so you can have fun figuring out. You could even ask the players. I could ask my daughter if a situation, you had to convince the caterpillar to do something and you fail. So I could ask her, hey, what happens? What happens to Alice when that doesn't work? What could you do? It's very thematic. It's very simple, but there's a lot going on there. They say you can use it for campaigns, and I suppose you could. I feel like campaign play is where the depth or lack thereof of systems kind of gets either brought to the fore or exposed. And, the one thing is, and this is no mark against it, right? The simpler a system is to play and run, it's going to tend to make it less deep. And the way all these obstacles are working, it's very narrative. So in that sense, you could just keep rattling out stories, which means you could play. But at the same time, is the fact that the way we're resolving things is it's so simple that just over time just won't hold our attention the way the other things are. There's no character growth. You're not gaining levels. You're not gaining new abilities or transforming in any way. So are you gonna tire over after Alice multiple sessions of doing it? Because you really are doing kind of the same thing over and over again. But there's not a lot of, the mechanics are there for the story. And if you enjoy the stories, then keep going, right? And just create more stories. So it's something that, who can say, right? I'm only reading it. I'm not playing it. But that would be my one question. But of course, just because even if it's not would be my choice to run a campaign, doesn't mean that other people can't. And it doesn't mean that it's not valuable, because I feel like as something to pull out anywhere, because all you need is a deck of cards, and you really don't need anything else. I mean, you could get enough of this book in your brain, or even just having it on your phone, to be able to get people up and running. And because the characters don't have sheets, don't have stats, it's really just about, okay, pick your suit, and then you just got to remember your kind of one-time, your once per game trick. You could do this at a picnic and not need anything but your deck of cards, and you're sitting around a circle, whatever, and playing. So I think it's great. And look, I will admit I am totally biased because I am a huge Alice in Wonderland Lewis Carroll fan. Hopefully they'll make a sequel with the folks from The Hunting of the Snark can make an appearance, or have a whole new game about them, or just integrate them into Wonderland and Mirrorland. But yeah, that's Return to Wonderland. I dig it. I dig it a lot. And that's it for now, right? So I did like a real smorgasbord. I did one 5th edition supplement, which was on mana, using mana spell colors from Magic the Gathering for your 5th edition game. I also read Creature Feature Quarterly, #1. Sorry, Tap, Untap, and Tap, Untap, Burn is the name of the 5th edition supplement. That was the first one that I covered in the stream. Second one being Creature Feature Quarterly, #1, and then Volume 1, and then look at Volume 3, and then finally Return to Wonderland. I will put links to where you can get all these if you like it. And once this gets up on YouTube or proper, I will try to timestamp stuff so you can pick. And I may cut them up and post them as individual pieces, but I know this is kind of a long stream. And I apologize if you entered in late. I didn't think about it, and actually until I'm watching this that I could have maybe made some graphics to put along the bottom so you'd know what game I was covering when, because you come in halfway through and you're just looking at me in a random page of a random book. So that was a little suboptimal from a viewing experience. I will try to fix that. I don't know if I'm going to get to stream anymore today. We will see. I don't know exactly when my wife and daughter are coming back, and I am in keen need of sustenance. But if I'm back on, I'll be back. If not, I'll catch you next time. And look, if you enjoyed these, go ahead and if you give the video a thumbs up, that would be grand. If you like this stuff and you want to see more of it, then subscribe to the channel. That would also be amazing. I do have a Patreon. I link to it usually in the show description if you'd like to support me in that way. And I do periodically come up with stuff that I send out just for patrons. So you do get more than just supporting the channel. But if you just want to support the channel, that is fine. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day. If you're streaming this, if you're watching the stream right now or whenever you're watching this, and I will talk to you later. End of line.